12:26 long way to go. A few hours later, Wang Wei was casually eating these women's food. He did not care nor had any expectations. He gave them a task as a way to psychologically comfort them, since he knew they would feel useless if he ignored or completely dismissed them. And in this terrifying place, being useless meant they would be killed, discarded, or even worse, traded as goods to someone else. Wang Wei uttered after taking a bite in one of the dishes. He focused and ate even more. This is delicious even by my standards. He added the meat to the rice and took a bite. They perfectly combine, and the taste even elevates each other. He drank the soup next, and his eyes shone even brighter. A 3-piece combination meal? Wang Wei quickly finished the meal before summoning the woman who made it. He looked at a thin woman with large eyes that had lost their luster. She had shoulder-length black hair and a mole underneath her eyes, and her body smelled of naturally alluring herbs. She was an unconventional beauty. "What's your name?" "Qinjilan," she replied while secretly holding the corner of her green dress. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" I cultivate food Dao." Wang Wei shook his head. "You're only a quasi-emperor, so even with such a unique Dao, it's impossible for your cooking to reach such a level unless you're an unparalleled genius." "Are you an unparalleled genius?" Qinjilan lowered her head. "You can tell me the truth," Wang Wei reassured. "Unlike your predecessor, I have no desire to take advantage of the weak." "Are you going to abandon us?" Qinjilan quickly asked. Such a fate might be worse for them. Their previous owner might be a bastard, but he was not one of those sick bastards who used them to fulfill his demonic desires. "No, I'll find a better and more peaceful life for the rest of you," Wang Wei reassured. "However, if any of you have talents or abilities I appreciate, life will be much easier for you once I leave this place." Qinjilan was silent for a few seconds before saying, "I understand. Can you answer my question now?" She still briefly hesitated before telling the truth. "I had a master who was, in fact, an unparalleled genius. With his food Dao, he became an everlasting Empyrean in record times. His skill even reached the level where he could make food beneficial to paragons as long as he had the material and enough time." Qinjilan became teary. "I'm guessing fate was not kind to him," Wang Wei said as he waved his hand to manifest a handkerchief for her. Sadly, she nodded. The moons heard of him and came for him. Some wanted to eradicate him, while others wanted to use his gift. In the end, the blood dragon took him away, and I've never heard from him since. She's not an immortal, and her lifespan is limited, so this should have happened recently, probably between 1,000,000 to a few billion years. Wang Wei leaned on the ladder because the main events that occurred in the past few million years mainly involved the lower dimension. If anything had happened before, his guards should have records of it. "What happened to you afterward?" "Many of the master's apprentices died or scattered during the confrontation," Qinjilan explained. "I was one of the lucky ones who escaped." She wiped out her tears. "Life was hard after that, but with my cooking, I could live a decent life even in hiding. Unfortunately, I was caught by slave traders and brought to this place, and—" "I understand," Wang Wei nodded. "Well, you don't have to worry anymore. It'll even help you find your master. Thank you for the offer, but I doubt he's still alive." "She's not that bright, is she?" Wang Wei thought. "Maybe just ignorant. You said your master was an everlasting Empyrean, correct?" "That's right." "In that case, he's definitely alive. After all, you remembered him, didn't you?" Wang Wei explained. Qinjilan looked at him with shock. "That's right. How can I forget about that?" Then, she started to sob again as she sat on the floor. "What is it?" Wang Wei asked while helping her up. "I spent so many years mourning him," she replied with tears and snot on her face. "I even built him an ancestral shrine. Do you think he's going to be mad at me?" "I'm sure he'll understand," Wang Wei reassured. Poor girl, all that trauma must have severely affected her spirit. His mind released a unique fluctuation, making Qinjilan pass out as her body and mind completely relaxed. Then, her body flew to her room. What a strange girl, Wang Wei shook his head as he walked to his room. However, he suddenly stopped. I did something on a whim but found a pair of talented master disciples with a rare food Dao. Is my luck this good? His essence flower ability required him to consume delicious food, which was a welcome surprise. However, Wang Wei felt something suspicious. His luck was excellent, but many good things happened recently, meaning it was time for him to calm down. Could it be that fate realized it might be a while before I can taste the future wife's food and sent me a temporary replacement? Wang Wei thought but soon shook his head. It loved me, but not to this extent. He looked at Qinjilan, peacefully sleeping, and his eyes changed. She's related to Su Junyao? Wang Wei's lips twitched as he put the pieces together. He had a fated love connection with Su Junyao, meaning they must experience many events to build an emotional bond naturally. Qinjilan and her master are part of those events. Wang Wei exhaled deeply. It's horrifying if you think about it logically. For this event regarding his love life, fate involved 3 Empyreans and a Paragon, blood dragon, as the primary participants. The power of the participants is not even the most impressive aspect, the scale of fate's operation is. Wang Wei, Su Junyao, Chen Xilan's master, and blood dragon are only 4 individuals in an infinitely large world. Fate has absolute control over the mortals of this world and weaves its influence amongst all the cultivators, who are considered gods and demons. Moreover, the eternal ascension world is only one world amid the infinite worlds in the chaos universe. Wang Wei suddenly felt or realized how tiny he was. His fate manipulation is a joke compared to the river of fate or its guardian/manager, the adjudicator of fate. There is no need to beat myself down, he thought, inhaling and exhaling to calm down. This only means I have a long way to go to attain my freedom. Look, he has an invincible streak. 1913, that's nothing. It will only be impressive if he can keep it while battling the tower. The next day, Qinjilan woke up refreshed, having had the best sleep since her master's disappearance. She quickly went to apologize to Wang Wei for how she behaved yesterday, and the latter reassured her. After breakfast, Wang Wei warned the other women, who were already displaying hidden jealousy toward Qinjilan, before leaving to start his challenge. According to the rules, as long as a cultivator in this continent leaves their house, considered a sacred and protective place, they must experience a minimum of 5 battles and a maximum of 1,000 battles. Wang Wei challenged all the Empyreans, but there were only 210 of them. He was not surprised since most of them had already entered the pagoda. Regardless, he won his matches as quickly as possible, usually with 1 punch. After that, he challenged the Dao rulers, which was even easier and quicker. Although a few insurgents were among them, most were just regular Dao rulers. In fact, they exercised their right to give up this battle once they encountered Wang Wei, and he was okay with it since it still counted as his win. In 5 days, Wang Wei met the requirements and took everyone from his room to enter the pagoda. As soon as he stepped inside, a golden crown condensed above his head, alarming everyone in the lobby. Wang Wei sensed countless gazes focusing on him, but he remained calm. Someone who's going to get a title, murmured an emperor on the corner. Look, he has an invincible streak. That's nothing. It will only be impressive if he can keep it while battling the tower. Look at this man's face. I think he might keep it. Keep dreaming. Only a few people can remain undefeated as they climb the tower, and they all lose that streak anyway after fighting the barbarian king, sneered another bystander. Either way, I have a good feeling about this one, so I'll bet on him. That's what you said, but the person you chose was defeated on the 3rd floor. I'm telling you, my intuition is telling me this person is the real deal. Wang Wei calmly observed and listened. An administrator from the pagoda came to lead him to a private room. Join my Discord to have many discussions about the story and so on. Here is the link, Novelcole Discord. GG/n says TPY Lazy Sage DAO. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report, so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1227. The barbarian king Wang Wei sat comfortably in a chair with a list in his hands, which contained the resources he could exchange in this battle pagoda. As someone with 5,000 victories, he's entitled to 5,000 battle points and an additional 5,000 points for a perfect winning streak. Most of the resources are not rare. However, the fact he could get his hands on them in this place, and possibly on a large scale, is proof of the barbarian king's ability, Wang Wei commented. However, a few things are eye-raising. He saw Heaven Wills on the list as exchangeable resources. Could this place also give birth to Heaven Wills? He immediately denied this. If this were true, the top lineages would do everything they could to conquer this place. Maybe he has deep connections, including with the pavilions, Wang Wei summarized. His eyes shifted to what genuinely caught his attention on the list. What is the effect of the battle temple? He was curious since this was the priciest thing on the list, requiring battle points per hour to access. I'm sorry, sir, but only people on the 4th floor are privy to this information, replied a well-mannered woman with blue hair, a white robe, and a reassuring smile. That's fine. Anyway, let's get this over with. It's good to be confident, the receptionist replied with a businesslike smile. After reviewing footage of your battles, we've granted you the title, Domineering Fist. Cliché, and a little bit cringe, but that's fine since it's not that important in the grand scheme of things, Wang Wei thought. No reaction? Thought the receptionist. Do you want to climb immediately or rest in the housing area? I have some people with me, so let's rest first. As you wish. Someone led Wang Wei to a mansion on this floor. He let all these women stay there while he observed the house. He sensed something, so he closed his eyes. This house provides a small blessing to comprehending the Grand Tao source, he analyzed. I'm starting to get a bigger picture of the barbarian king. The next day, Wang Wei started his first match on the 1st floor. According to the rules, he might have to experience one or multiple battles to determine whether to ascend to the 2nd floor, and the exact criteria are unknown to anyone. Although this seems unfair, Wang Wei had no complaints. His first opponent was a strange Tao ancestor insurgent who held a shield in his left hand and a curved sword in his right with the title of, the Elusive Guard. The two stared at each other as a number manifested between heaven and earth to serve as a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Begin. Wang Wei appeared before the man and punched him. You actually evaded it? Although he was not trying, not just anybody could evade his attack. How did you do it? The elusive guard's body trembled as these two gray eyes looked at him up and down. He felt naked as all his secrets became an open book. Reading the electrical impulses of my body to predict my movements? No, not just the electrical impulses, but a unique aura that they create, Wang Wei uttered, quite the decent technique. Wang Wei moved, and before his opponent could react, he knocked him out. His win ratio increased, and after waiting for a few seconds, he ascended to the 2nd layer. In this battle, he faced an insurgent immortal sovereign with a unique chi called the Immortal Army Chi, which allowed him to summon a large quantity of immortal venerables. Of course, someone of Wang Wei's caliber does not care about numbers. However, this chi was not so simple as it allowed its user to fuse these summons into more powerful entities, and the summons were immortal as long as their summoners were alive, conscious, and had enough chi. Additionally, the summons also had decent techniques similar to the 1st floor. This battle was more tedious than challenging. The pagoda's power hid the whereabouts of the summoner, forcing Wang Wei to fight a few rounds before he found his opponent and ended the charade. On the 3rd floor, he faced an assassin. They fought in a misty space, and the environment was designed to give his opponent the advantage. On the 4th layer, Wang Wei headed directly to the battle temple. He found himself before a large bronze mural with drawings of people fighting. The mural had no easily discernible aura, but it felt ancient and powerful. Wang Wei closed his eyes and immediately felt his mind even more active than usual. Ideas and thoughts flashed around at an alarming speed. So, that's what it is, Wang Wei thought with a smile. I've been thinking about improving my techniques, and fate sends me this place. The Battle Temple's sole purpose was to help people create better techniques or battle skills. That's why the previous challengers all had decent techniques despite mostly being loose cultivators with no foundation and not being unparalleled geniuses. Wang Wei lost himself in the act of upgrading his techniques when he was suddenly interrupted. Not enough battle points? What a shame. He was annoyed that he had to stop. The process of creating/upgrading his technique was never so fluent, smooth, and dare say, easy. He exhaled, no need to be upset. Once I defeat the Barbarian King, this place will be mine to use as I see fit. After knowing what was waiting for him, Wang Wei speed ran through the next challenges. He had to face Empyrean from the 7th floor and battle more than once before ascending, but nothing could stop him. The only battle he paid attention to was on the 9th floor when he faced a series of battle puppets, the last one of which even forced him to use 50% of his strength. After passing the 9th floor, the pagoda became lively. It's been a while since someone had reached the 10th floor, meaning the Barbarian King hadn't displayed his might in a while. So, this battle suddenly became grandiose. Everyone in the pagoda and outside gathered to experience this major event. People bet on who was going to win, and of course, the majority favored the Barbarian King. The official gambling hall of the pagoda focused on specific bets, for example, how long will Wang Wei last? Or whether he'll be able to injure the Barbarian King in the slightest. Wang Wei floated in the air with his arms crossed, ignoring all the whispers outside. He was interested in an opponent like the Barbarian King, and luckily, he did not have to wait long. A space crack appeared in front of him to spew a towering, muscular man. The Barbarian King was 3.5 meters, making him a small giant compared to Wang Wei's 1.95 meters. His braided hair made his face fierce but with a hint of suaveness. The Barbarian King wore a simple black robe but did not put on the top, leaving his upper torso bare, showing his intimidating physique. His muscles were so defined that it could be said his muscles had muscles. Above him, a win-lose ratio of 2,349 to 0 manifested. This ratio might appear small, but considering the high requirements for the 9th floor, it was actually impressive that so many people finally received the opportunity to face him. A barbarian with a giant race bloodline? Wang Wei commented. What a strange combination. This battle might be interesting. As soon as he laid eyes on this person, he knew he was a worthy adversary. The Barbarian King was a peak indestructible Empyrean that achieved limit indestructibility. His body will fusion is already in the advanced stage, one step from perfection, Wang Wei thought, and his eyes immediately shone. This man is an unparalleled genius. Interesting indeed, the Barbarian King spoke, his voice deep but also reassuring. I thought this would just be a match to display my power after so long. But you might be a truly worthy opponent. I'm honored, Wang Wei said without any signs of respect whatsoever. He released his aura, and the Barbarian King grinned, showing his rows of white teeth before also doing the same. Their aura clash twisted the void, and the crowd watching went wild. The battle countdown ended, and Wang Wei rushed forward. Boom! His body flew backward, crashing through a few mountains. He had to use his superb control of force to reduce the attack's effect and stop himself from continuing. He looked at the right side of his body, and it was gone. It calmly regenerated as he sighed. As expected, he sighed. The Barbarian King had reached the peak of 10 heavens while he was still in the 3rd. Additionally, this monster had the bloodline of the giant race while being a barbarian, meaning strength was his strong suit. The Barbarian King laughed as he appeared before Wang Wei. You have it. The madness of truly talented body refiners who wish to test the limit of their bodies against anything and anyone. It's been a while since I met another kin. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1228 A Battle of True Will. Wang Wei smiled at this comment. Few body refiners can reach their level without being masochists and mad. After his body regenerated, he clenched his fist. His body had high immunity to all Dao, including the power Dao. So, he had to deactivate that immunity to test his strength, which is why he was hurt. However, he was prepared for a real battle after learning about the wide gap between the 3rd and 10th heavens. He activated all his grand Dao boosts. He raised his hand to summon a purple bolt of lightning before throwing them. The Barbarian King casually swapped the attack away, and Wang Wei appeared before him, plunging his hand into the latter's stomach. He used his 5 fingers as a spear, and normally, such an attack could pierce a universe, breaking it into 2 parts. However, it did not even scratch the Barbarian King's skin. The king responded by dropping his massive elbow on Wang Wei's cranium. The viewers expected to see a headless corpse with blood spilling, but the attack merely created a massive shockwave that destroyed the surroundings. As for Wang Wei, he was perfectly intact. The two stared at each other before clashing repeatedly. Wang Wei mostly used elemental attacks, while the Barbarian King was direct, using his fist and powerful body to annihilate anyone or anything in his path. After clashing for over a minute, the two stopped. They immediately knew that with their limit indestructibility, no attack would work on each other. There was only one way to determine the victor: willpower manifestation /Dao will /true will. Only this power that negates defense and regeneration can injure them and decide the fate of this battle. As such, red lightning manifested around these two eyes. I thought he would reject using a Dao will artifact, Wang Wei thought. His initial assessment of the Barbarian King was that he was similar to those headstrong swordsmen of the extreme path, but for body refining. Such a person should only use willpower manifestation and reject the power of true will despite it being objectively better. He's powerful, has a scheming mind, and is not headstrong or pedantic. He's truly a talent. He was genuinely excited about acquiring such a talent. In the lower dimension, he had to mold the people around him into talents, while the other talents were either his enemy or too prideful to serve under him. But today, he did not have to worry about that. The Barbarian King went on the offensive with a palm attack. He appeared before Wang Wei and slapped downward with his enormous hand. Wang Wei's eyes squinted before punching. He sensed it as soon as their attacks touched. The palm contained an invisible swirling power that could grind even a black hole into a fine paste. However, the more impressive aspect of this technique was not its strength but the fact that the Barbarian King's true will was also rotating at an alarming rate. If Wang Wei was not careful, his true will would be dispersed, and he would be injured for real. Unfortunately for the Barbarian King, he met an expert. Wang Wei's true will seemingly assimilated with his opponent before reverting the rotating force, turning it into a backlash. The Barbarian King's huge body moved with terrifying speed a few kilometers away, and he glanced at a tiny red part of his palm. He was injured. "I haven't bled since I fought that old man," he commented, his voice trying to contain his excitement. Then, he grinned. "It seems I still underestimate you." What a quick reaction, Wang Wei thought. That attack should have pulverized the Barbarian King's entire arm, just like what had happened to him. More importantly, his body is unnatural. After these short clashes, Wang Wei realized the Barbarian King's body was not due to a special physique or bloodline but more so the result of a body refining technique. Unfortunately, the opponent's information was protected by this pagoda, so Wang Wei needed more time to gather and analyze more data. "You should take this seriously," Wang Wei replied. "Otherwise, you'll suffer, and I won't accept any excuses for your defeat. I would never do such a sacrilegious thing and tarnish the sacred art of combat," the Barbarian King responded seriously. "Sacred? I never thought I would meet someone more battle-hungry than me, Li Jun, or the monkey," Wang Wei thought. Maybe my ancestor was like this. After all, he chose the battle maniac name. The Barbarian King's body suddenly lit up as if it were a shining diamond. He slashed his hand downward, managing to generate a sword slash more than 10 meters long, heading toward his opponent with unparalleled speed. Wang Wei waved his hand to the side to break the attack, and his eyes squinted. "That bastard learned my technique," he thought. The Barbarian King learned his true will application of melding his power into his opponent to disarm it. Wang Wei was sure he did not know it beforehand, given how he reacted after coming into contact for the first time. The Barbarian King did not give him time to respond, so he continued. He jumped, higher into the sky. As he reached a few kilometers above Wang Wei's head, he landed, and the space underneath his feet caved in. The Barbarian King expertly controlled his strength to bend spacetime under his feet. He then used it like a slingshot to shoot himself with immeasurable speed toward Wang Wei. Wang Wei would have praised such a brilliant body-refining movement technique, but the opponent's speed had reached the same level as him, maybe even slightly higher, so all his focus was on how to react. He did not evade and clashed head-on with a fist of his own. To the normal viewers, this clash was a confrontation of power or attack potency. However, only a few people and the two involved knew this was a confrontation of their true wills. This is the deciding factor in a battle with strength that is so close together. The Barbarian King used a different true will technique. This time around, he condensed his true will to increase its potency before exploding. The explosion should have eliminated the opponent's true will while also doing great damage to the body. Unfortunately for him, Wang Wei retaliated with the same condensing approach but executed more brilliantly. The clash of true will is invisible, undetectable, and indescribable to normal individuals. However, if it were to be expressed in a way for mortals to understand, then it could be summarized as such. The Barbarian King's condensation was as if he took the tallest mountain possible and crushed/condensed it into a ball the size of an egg before removing the pressure and allowing it to explode. However, Wang Wei's was as if he took the largest star possible and condensed it into a tiny dot. The result was the Barbarian King's right arm exploding in a pool of blood. However, this injury was nothing. On top of his cultivation talent, the man also had a terrifyingly high battle IQ. He accepted his loss in the confrontation, and before his arm was entirely blown up, he removed a significant part of the right side of his body to prevent Wang Wei's true will from remaining inside his body. The Barbarian King also realized that for an opponent of this caliber, the less than a nanosecond his body needs to regenerate is plenty of time. So, the moment his arm was blowing up and he was protecting himself, he was also making a third move, growing 3 more limbs from his back. So, when Wang Wei was about to follow up with a second attack, the Barbarian King's 4 arms slapped each other, releasing a potent force that pushed the space between him and his opponent, thus separating them by a few hundred light years. The Barbarian King expected the opponent to be more aggressive and come after him, but Wang Wei stopped and waited for him. The king frowned. What is this? Pity? Mockery? His voice did not hide his annoyance. Not at all, Wang Wei replied. I just know this is still not your true pinnacle state, and I want to see and fight you at your best. I understand, the king replied, his voice containing a deeper respect for his opponent. I prepared this technique for the old man, but I guess you'll be the first one to see it. This was not the first time the Barbarian King faced an opponent that was exponentially better than him at utilizing their true will. After that defeat, he trained his true will non-stop but felt it was not enough. So, he developed a method that was unique to him to give him an advantage. Muscle will, an unknown will awaken from the Barbarian King's body to fuse with his true will. The answer to his problem was that he would win with numbers and raw power since he could not fight with skill against these experts. What's going on? Wang Wei asked himself, extremely baffled. The body could not have another will, especially after starting the body will fusion. Any will awakening from the body would just be part of someone's will manifestation. Unless he has 2 souls, which could make it possible, but it doesn't seem to be the case, Wang Wei thought as he observed every detail of this technique, trying to figure out its in and out. His gray eyes lit up, and he saw something. This bastard. No wonder his body is so abnormal. Who knew he could think of such a thing? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1229 A Monster in the Flesh. As the Barbarian King used his technique, Wang Wei was able to notice the changes in his body, allowing him to know why he was such an anomaly and solve a mystery that puzzled him. From what Wang Wei knew, the giant race had been extinct for a long time. They existed in a time that could be described as ancient history even by this world's standards. The current giant race is the product of evolved creation lifeforms and has nothing to do with its ancestors. So, how did the barbarian king acquire his bloodline? He could have found a relic or inheritance of the ancient giant race and acquired the bloodline. However, the chances of anything related to them still surviving in the modern era were slim. The only other explanation is that one of the barbarian king's distant ancestors had some affairs with the giant race, and the barbarian king accidentally won the bloodline lottery, awakening that giant bloodline countless Xuan epochs later. Such an act already made the barbarian king special. The barbarian race was known for its powerful physiques and talent for body refining, and now, he also had the talent from the giant race, who could grow taller and bigger than the innate demon gods and the fiend gods. However, what truly impressed Wang Wei was what he did with that bloodline. The barbarian king's body refining technique involved using his bloodline to condense a giant clone. He would cultivate that clone to be as big or strong as possible before fusing them into himself. This technique was like an origin cultivator had cultivated hundreds of Dharma bodies to fuse with. Wang Wei could tell that the barbarian king's skin, muscles, flesh, bones, organs, and blood were fused with hundreds of giant clones, turning his physique into the monstrous entity that it is currently. One giant already takes so many resources to cultivate, but he fused with hundreds of them, Wang Wei lamented. The barbarian race must have dedicated so much effort to train this bastard, but why was he living in this desolate place? As soon as he asked his questions, Wang Wei had an answer, so he could only shake his head. The barbarian king awakened the will of all the giant clones he had previously absorbed, fusing them into one before combining them into his true will. The lightning around his eyes was no longer red but purple. Now, I'm at my best, the barbarian king declared. Indeed. In that case, let's get this show started. Wang Wei used his fate escape technique to appear before his opponent and punched him in the stomach. The barbarian king responded by blocking with his left elbow. This attack was an initial test, so Wang Wei used the previous condensing technique. As expected, the barbarian king learned from the previous battle and drastically improved, but he was still not in the same league as Wang Wei. However, he did not need to. His muscle will made up for the parts he was lacking, allowing him to make up for the gap. Invincible aura, a golden shade enveloped the barbarian king's body, and his overall atmosphere changed. Anyone looking at him would know he was a man of indomitable spirit. Yes, he had an invincible battle streak, but that was not why he was invincible. He was invincible because of his nature to never give up no matter the situation. He was invincible because he believed that no one could stop his path forward. The barbarian king's power increased since this technique could grant a Grand Dao boost. He went from a strength of 99% of Grand Dao source to 9,999%, climbing closer to the strength of the Paragon realm. His right hand then went directly to Wang Wei's head, but the latter responded appropriately. Determinism aura, a dark gray hue emanated from his body and enveloped the world, turning into a dark shade. The golden light around the barbarian king's body faltered as a terrifying feeling of fatalism. The barbarian king's mind was suddenly full of the idea that a higher power determined everything in his life, and all his accomplishments, including his battle victories, were not the result of his actions or capabilities but determined by fate. These thoughts almost destroyed his belief system. Luckily, he was a man with incredible willpower, so he soon overcame these thoughts and feelings. Unfortunately for him, the effect of his aura was rendered useless, allowing Wang Wei to evade his punch while counterattacking with another punch to the chest. The barbarian king took a dozen steps back with a hole in his stomach. Wang Wei had finally used the true trump card of his true will technique, versatility and change. So, in this attack, his true will started with a condensing method to lure his enemy into a sense of complacency before turning into a twisting attack, which caught the barbarian king off guard. However, the talented body refiner also made the correct choice in this situation. He used his two wills to force the opponent's power from his body, allowing him to continue this battle. Wang Wei was more aggressive since he was now taking this battle seriously, so he teleported before his opponent and used one of his old techniques. He gathered vibrations from every aspect of his otherworldly body, his skin, muscles, bones, cells, and even every atom of his existence, and condensed them into a force that he released through his hand. Such an attack should have been devastating, but the Barbarian King had an answer. A white projection of a giant manifested behind him, and the creature embraced the Barbarian King as if it were a mother protecting her child. Cracks spread throughout the projection as soon as Wang Wei's fist touched it, but the technique still granted its user a moment of respite as it blocked most of the attack's strength. Wang Wei's eyes suddenly released a beam of chaos flame as a follow-up, and the Barbarian King responded by opening his mouth and swallowing it. His mouth was like its own black hole, and this was not far from the truth. After fusing so many giants, the Barbarian King's body had mutated. His stomach was like a condensed version of a giant's stomach, meaning it contained its own dimension to make up for the size. Wang Wei manifested strings that swiftly attached themselves to the Barbarian King's limbs, but the big man escaped this technique by a surprising means. In a matter of less than an attosecond, he shrunk his body to the size of a particle before returning to its original size after escaping the immediate range of the strings. War God's 3 talents, the Barbarian King created 3 projections/clones with the same strength as him. He decided to use numbers to give himself the advantage in this battle, so he ordered the projections to attack as he waited on the side to assist or make use of an opportunity. The clones immediately surrounded Wang Wei before attacking his head, all their first turning into a lion energy projection. Boom! The attack seems to have worked. Upon contact, Wang Wei exploded into a gray mist, but before anyone could rejoice, the mist enveloped the clones. The mist dissipated soon after, leaving an intact Wang Wei and the clones with a mark on their forehead. They then looked at their creators with undisguised malice. Of course, the Barbarian King tried to secretly disperse his technique, but it was useless. Ancestral roar, he opened his mouth for a sonic attack with a wide area of effect. 2 phantoms, a barbarian and a giant, manifested behind the Barbarian King and roared along with him. This sonic attack not only released a potent vibrational effect but also contained an oppressive power that wanted to crush everything in its path. It also includes a third characteristic, attacking the mind/spirit/soul. Wang Wei controlled the 3 clones to stand before him and combined their strength for one attack, which created a direct path into this terrifying roar. He then manipulated his blood to condense into a spear and threw it through that path. The Barbarian King's face changed as he sensed an unbelievable penetrating power from that spear. Even the true will attached to it involved a skill based on penetration. His mind went into overdrive to analyze the situation, and he realized that most of his defensive skills would be instantly pierced. So, he controlled his body to dissipate his skin, muscles, flesh, blood, and organs, leaving only his bones, which were the hardest part. He raised his bony arms to block the blood spear. For a brief moment, the Barbarian King stopped the attack, proving he made the right choice. Sadly, his opponent was thinking a few moves ahead of him. The blood spear suddenly exploded into blood needles with the same piercing potential, embedding themselves in all his 365 bones. The Barbarian King's face changed as he realized the severity of his situation. The needles contained scattered true will, so he immediately tried to remove them. Unfortunately, there were so many of them that it would take him way too long to deal with every individual one. The king turned his attention to Wang Wei, who was already before him. As he was about to respond, the blood needles and true will exploded, temporarily paralyzing him. Then, Wang Wei calmly touched his bones and sealed his power. "You lose," he declared. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1230 Monk. Indeed, the Barbarian King nodded. This feeling is still terrible. Had only been defeated a handful of times in his life, and it was never a positive experience. "That's true," Wang Wei nodded. "You've tested defeat?" "Once, well, a few times, but only once that I truly acknowledged," he nodded. "Someone has defeated you?" I would love to meet such a talent. Dead. That makes sense, the barbarian king nodded. He took a moment to break the seal from his body as he did not like the sense of weakness he was currently feeling. My intuition tells me you came here for a purpose, so let's talk somewhere private. He punched the air to create a space passage, and Wang Wei followed him. They soon arrived in a lavish palace, and as soon as they landed, a beautiful woman rushed into the barbarian king's arm. Monk, are you alright? Wang Wei looked at this woman. She wore an elegant dress that reminded him of Mongol royalty from Earth, especially with the over-the-top headdress. She was taller than him but still looked tiny before the barbarian king. The barbarian race's culture and identity resembled Mongolia from Earth. Why is that? Could there be other races inspired by Eastern Asia? What is the connection with Earth? Why is Grand Dao allowing their existence but not other races from the prehistoric world? Wang Wei had these thoughts for a while after meeting the barbarian twins during Gu Xian's trial. However, they resurfaced after today's meeting, and he hoped he could find some answers. I'm fine, Monk reassured his wife. He then introduced her to Wang Wei. This is my main wife, Dulgun. Main wife? Wang Wei thought, but he did not state that out loud. He saluted. It's a pleasure to meet you, madam. You have defeated my husband in combat, meaning you're our honored guest. So, the pleasure is all mine, she saluted back. Give us some privacy while I talk to him, Monk said, and his wife nodded. The barbarian king led him to a beautiful garden with a waterfall that spewed rainbow-colored water. Wang Wei's eyes lit up since this garden was even more marvelous than the one he built in his court. Your wife's work? He asked. It looked so, doesn't it? Monk laughed. But no. I built this place to reduce my bloodlust and calm my mind. That's a wise move, Wang Wei praised. It's one thing to love battle but another to be obsessed with it. The two sat down, and Monk served his best wine reserved for opponents that he respects. What did you want to talk about? Before that, I don't even know how to address you. The name's Wang Wei, meaning Great King. I'm Monk, representing eternity in our language, the barbarian king replied. Wang Wei nodded. I'll be direct. Are you not completely cut off from the outside world? I know what's going on. Then you should have heard of the Son of Era or the Destined One. You don't mean? That's right. That explains your monstrous talent, Monk muttered. So, you came here to hide? No, the opposite. I came to conquer this place, Wang Wei admitted directly, making the barbarian king squint. He paused briefly before saying, I have no issue serving under you, Monk replied. However, I have two conditions, one being non-negotiable. I'm listening. The non-negotiable condition is that my servitude is temporary until we end this era, and you cannot enslave my soul. Wang Wei squinted his eyes. He mulled it over but did not immediately reject such a condition. Can I ask why? I am the hope and future of the barbarian race, Monk replied succinctly. You're their primal Paragon seed? That's right. Wang Wei grunted softly. The barbarian race was not part of any of the 13 overlords, but they were a top lineage with one primal Paragon. However, if they had a second one, they would meet the minimum requirements for a seat as one of the overlords. I can accept your condition, and we can even sign a binding contract, Wang Wei agreed after pondering about it for a while. He considered many things before making this decision, but the crux of the reason he accepted is the barbarian race. Firstly, they acted similarly to the Dao opening sect when it came to treating their people, especially their genius. As such, Wang Wei knew there was a high chance these people would go to war with the sect for Monk, even knowing they had a small chance at winning. In general, the barbarian race is a low-key and pretty isolated faction, probably due to their different culture and customs. As such, they are neutral in most situations or events, but their only enemy is the Pre-March Origin Temple, one of the 13 overlords, composed of the innate demon gods. Their feud started because one of their geniuses was assassinated, and since then, they've been at odds with the innate demon gods. They even formed a loose alliance with the tribal Sacred Mountain, another overlord ruled by the demon race and enemy of the pre-March origin temple. Wang Wei did not want to make an enemy of the barbarian race, even though it may be worth it for MÖngke. In the new era coming, primal paragons will no longer be the deciding factors of the top factions, but half-step transcendent will. He hasn't known MÖngke long enough to determine whether he's talented enough to walk the path of transcendence, and forcing him to serve him might ruin his talent. So, he accepted his proposal. Having the barbarian race as an ally should be very beneficial to the sect, Wang Wei thought. What's your second condition? I want the opportunity to personally tear off the Earth Emperor's head, MÖngke said with bloodlust in his eyes. He's the reason you're here? That's right, MÖngke nodded, his eyes containing deep hatred. The bastard envies my talent, so he first tried to force me to become his son-in-law. When our tribe refused, he found an excuse to persecute us. To save me, the clan had to label me as a traitor and exile me, but even then, the bastard would not let it go. I had to come here to hide. Given the fact he might have secretly eliminated some of his talented children, I'm not surprised by this, Wang Wei commented. Well, I have no issue with this condition. Anyway, whether you kill him or I do is fine by me, as long as he's dead. In that case, I'll offer you my strength and talent. MÖngke raised his large wind bowls, and Wang Wei followed him. They toasted their new alliance before chugging the bowl down. The next step was to sign the contract, but MÖngke said his wife would negotiate the nitty-gritty details, and Wang Wei was fine with that. Can I ask about this pagoda? You can use it, but you can't have it. Wang Wei's lips twitched. I didn't want it, I simply wanted to know its details. I see. Well, this is what I received from my blessing ceremony. You received a supreme chaos treasure from your ceremony? That's right. No wonder your race has so much faith in you, Wang Wei sighed. The barbarian race was not a monolith, meaning they were divided into tribes and different bloodline lines. One thing they had in common was their spiritual practice, which involved worshipping spirits. As such, each barbarian tribe had a different spirit temple, the most famous ones being the War God Temple, the Wolf Spirit Temple, and the Life Tree Temple. Every barbarian child between the ages of 0 and 10 must experience a blessing ceremony in one of the temples, which usually increases their luck and talents or allows them to receive gifts from the temple. MÖngke smiled proudly. Stories of his ceremony are still talked about to this day in the clan. Many people even argued that he was responsible for the War God Temple's current domination over the other two. Enough with the chit-chat, Wang Wei said. Tell me your opinion on my attempt to conquer this place. Your biggest obstacle should be the Hidden Master and the Ruthless King, MÖngke responded. Why is that? The Ruthless King will not surrender to anyone, no matter what. His pride is too high, so he won't ever serve under someone else. On top of that, he technically has the biggest force in this place since the martial outlaw gang is one of his hidden powers. Wang Wei nodded. What about the Hidden Master? Him? He will only intervene when the Lawless zone faces an external threat, and he might interpret your actions as such. So, what makes him so dangerous? He's a paragon that survived the cleansing, MÖngke said. Are you serious? I don't need to lie about such a thing. How did he survive? Is he that powerful? Wang Wei asked. I think it has more to do with his hiding abilities, MÖngke explained. From what I know, he always hid once the parasites came to this place together to clean up the hidden paragons and only fought them individually. Wang Wei frowned. What about the sons? There are no records of them entering this place. That's odd. Indeed, MÖngke nodded. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1231 The deployment plan. Could this place be, as the rumors said, under the influence of heavenly Tao, which may thus affect even half-step transcendent? Wang Wei did not like this line of thought since that would indicate that heavenly Tao was a much more powerful transcendent than supreme unity and Maitreya. However, if that were the case, how could it allow supreme unity to take its power? Unless achieving half-step transcendence was a standard method allowed by Grand Tao, thus granting sentient beings a chance at controlling heavenly Tao, Wang Wei analyzed. He grunted softly, still not liking this explanation. Another possibility is that heavenly Tao used Grand Tao's power to create the Lawless zone, which is why its effect may still apply to these beings. However, why would it have to do so? Balancing the distribution of resources in the world is not a good enough reason to involve Grand Tao. So, is there a deeper secret about this place, or is my theory completely wrong? Wang Wei wanted answers, but he also realized that thinking alone would not help. Once he's done conquering this place, he might have to take some time and investigate its secret. I have one more thing to ask you about, Wang Wei asked. I'm listening, MÖngke nodded. Do you know whether the barbarian race has an unknown origin? MÖngke stopped drinking and looked at him. What is it? Did I mention a sensitive topic? Kind of, MÖngke replied before finishing his wine bowl. We suffer much discrimination because of our culture and language, especially in the early days of our history. Yet, Buddhism is perfectly fine despite also being an anomaly. Wang Wei understood what he meant. Buddhism's name and culture still retain aspects of their origin in India, meaning they are also an anomaly in the universe. However, they are widely accepted and even worshipped across the chaos universe. Your race should have been curious about your origin. Didn't you try to explore it? Wang Wei asked. We did, MÖngke replied. The result was that we were born in the eternal ascension world, just like everyone else, and our culture diverged from others at a certain point in our early history. Meaning there was no anomaly from your development? You just naturally evolved such a culture? Correct, MÖngke nodded. Another possibility is a higher power influenced you without even noticing it, Wang Wei nodded, and MÖngke gave him a praising look. We deduced the same thing after realizing that most of our brethren from other source chaos worlds evolved in the same way. They developed the same culture with minor changes in languages and so on. Wang Wei pondered about the situation. He was intrigued by Buddhism and the barbarian race's origin, believing them to have some connection with the prehistoric world in one form or another. He also thinks Grand Tao is involved in this, and probably the cause of the uniqueness of these two groups. Well, thank you for answering my questions. Wang Wei knew he wouldn't get an answer about these things until he was a half-step transcendent. By then, it might not even be difficult, as asking Hong Jun directly might get him answers. It's fine, but can I ask you a question? MÖngke nodded. By all means. Why is your battle IQ so high? MÖngke asked. The way you fight is not the result of talent alone. It's more like you've experienced trillions of battles, but from what I can detect, you're a very young Empyrean, maybe too young. So, how is that possible? Quite observant, Wang Wei praised as he raised his hand to condense a talisman. Consider a meeting gift. Dream combat? MÖngke uttered after detecting the information inside. He closed his eyes before opening them 5 minutes later. The big man did not hide his excitement. Thank you, he said sincerely. He could not fight and learn at all times, even when awake or doing menial tasks. There was no greater gift for someone like him. No problem. I did not expect someone else to love battle as much as I do, MÖngke added. Such a brilliant technique, why didn't I think of it before? I wasn't the sole creator, but we indeed enjoy the art of combat, but I doubt as devoted as you. Oh, there is someone else? Can I meet him? He's still in the lower dimension and probably won't ascend for a while. That's a shame. However, when he does, please notify me, and I will hold a grand banquet to welcome him. No problem. The two chatted briefly before ending this meeting. The outside world was shocked by the barbarian king's defeat, but the big man lay on his huge bed beside his wife. So, what do you think? Only someone chosen by fate with such tremendous destiny could defeat you, Dulgun nodded. Then, she asked, you said his name was Wang Wei? Yes, why? Do you think he's from that Wang clan? It's possible, but Wang is such a common surname. What do you think is most likely? That he's an extremely talented individual with great destiny with that surname or chosen for that destiny because he's from that Wang clan? You have a point, MÖngke nodded. If that's the case, our alliance doesn't have to end once we defeat these parasites. We can extend it to involve our respective factions. Are you sure about this? Dulgun asked. You should understand how our elders value their neutrality. Many people believe that once these parasites are removed, the world will return to the era of the 13 overlords. However, these people have not figured out that the two suns have broken the previous situation. The upcoming era is not a return of the old time, but a new competition to re-establish the game board. Whoever can reach the same realm as them will become the new chess player, MÖngke said. But can anyone achieve such a cultivation realm? Dulgun asked, not hiding her certainty. These two seem to be outliers. So many paragons and top powerhouse from this world participated in that event, but only those two survived. Being the first to do something is usually the hardest part, MÖngke commented. Now that everyone knows it is possible and can even observe the person who succeeded, it will become easier to recreate. More importantly, I don't believe all those participants who died in that event did learn or bring something with them from the experience. MÖngke had to think of his future. Once he perfected his body will fusion, he can open the gate of flesh to become an inextinguishable paragon. With his talent and the support of the clan, he had complete confidence in attaining the title of a primal paragon. So, his vision must be wider and look beyond the paragon realm. You have a point, Dulgun nodded. The two discussed their future in the night, and the next morning, they started the negotiation. To their surprise, Wang Wei was not strict or difficult about the binding contract they needed to sign, making Dulgun, the master negotiator, suddenly feel at a loss given how easy and smooth the entire thing was. Wang Wei could discern MÖngke's personality, and he was the loyal and honorable kind who would keep his word even if it meant his death. As such, he showed his charisma through this discussion by being lenient. This was an excellent way to show his trust and create a better relationship with such a talent as MÖngke. Since everything has been negotiated, let's discuss our next step, Wang Wei declared. The three of them pooled their knowledge together about this place before laying out a plan to sweep the place. The simplification of the plan was that Wang Wei would deal with the pavilions while MÖngke dealt with the demons. Then, they worked together to take down the gangs before facing the Ruthless King and the Hidden Master. Once everyone had their roles, they deployed. Wang Wei went to the Dark Cloud Pavilion, MÖngke visited the Poison Demon, and his main wife, Dulgun, who was an everlasting Empyrean with a cultivation of 73%, went to see the Puppet Demon. Wang Wei secretly returned to the Dark Cloud Pavilion city, and a few people were already waiting for him. He calmly looked at these assassins that he took control of. What is the situation? We've taken control over the law enforcement hall, replied the petite assassin. However, the most powerful members of the pavilion are the Dark Mist assassins, and they only serve the pavilion master. We could not even come close to them, let alone try to control them. You did more than enough, Wang Wei nodded. Anything else to report? The pavilion master may have been suspicious of our movements. May? He has always been suspicious by nature, the petite woman explained. Suspicions came with this job, so that was not surprising. However, lately, he has been ramping it up a little. It's fine if he's suspicious since we can use that against him. The only problem Wang Wei feared was the pavilion master to hide and now show his face, forcing him to waste time and search for him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1232 Experimental Material. The Dark Cloud Pavilion Master stood on the hidden 13 floors of his pavilion, overlooking the city. Although a mist still surrounded him, any discerning individual could detect his slightly restless mood. He suddenly sensed something somewhere in the city. Although it was brief and swiftly disappeared, he sensed one of his people somewhere they should not be. Was I right? Did something happen to my people? He resisted his first instinct to immediately check out and, instead, send a communication talisman to assemble the Dark Mist's assassins. Not even 10 seconds passed before countless mist shadows materialized behind him. "Master," they said in perfect synchronized voices. "Some rats have infiltrated our order. Let's remove them," the Pavilion Master ordered, and the group answered, "As you wish." Everyone disappeared from their locations. The Pavilion Master led them to a house hidden underground in the worst area of this city where only mortals lived. Whoever picked this location chose an excellent spot, and the protection around this hidden base was also well done, the Pavilion Master sneered. He expected as much from someone who may have successfully corrupted his men against him. However, it did not matter how capable the person was or who was behind them, he would eradicate this threat as soon as possible. "I hope it's one of the other pavilions so I can use this excuse to extort resources from them," the Dark Cloud Pavilion Master thought as he ordered his people to break in. As expected, the people inside resisted, using the formation in this base to fight them off. However, it was useless as the Dark Mist assassins slaughtered everyone in sight. Most of these people were weak, which was normal since it was easier to detect people with higher cultivation when entering the city. "Something is wrong," thought the Pavilion Master. Things proceeded too easily and too smoothly. He ordered his people to be careful, and on their guard since something major might be coming once they arrived at the core of this base. However, the Pavilion Master was not prepared for what he saw inside. A handsome man with gray hair and eyes waited for him, with all the members of his law enforcement hall standing behind him. The Dark Cloud Pavilion Master immediately realized this was a trap and wanted to leave, but it was too late. His divine sense warned him that the room was now in an isolated dimension with potent arrays preventing their exit. He then calmed down, faced his opponent, and asked, "Who are you?" Wang Wei did not answer him but looked intently at the Dark Cloud Pavilion Master and the Dark Mist assassins. "You have the rare Dark Mist Chi, which boosts assassin-related skills and allows its user to share the Chi with others, forming a bond similar to that of a hive mind. The primary holder of the Chi has absolute control over the secondary holders. They can also perfectly sync with them, read their minds, and share abilities. You are wise to share the Dark Mist Chi with the creation live inside your inner world, allowing you access to a variety of abilities and powers," Wang Wei calmly commented. "However, despite how rare and useful your Chi is, it's not the main reason I'm interested in you. It's not why I found you extremely valuable." Wang Wei's eyes shone almost as bright as it would have if he saw his wife, and that's because of the Zerg Hive Mind Plan. The Dark Mist Chi is an excellent data gathering method for creating such a creature in the future. The Dark Cloud Pavilion Master's body trembled. His intuition warned him of a terrible future if this man caught him. He used his secret connection to order his men to go on the offensive, so the Dark Mist assassins immediately activated their skills or techniques. Sadly for them, it was pointless. A projection of the River of Fate materialized above the room, releasing strings that immediately entered these assassins' foreheads and disarming them in the process. The Pavilion Master's face turned ugly as he sensed his connection with these people being forcefully severed. He quickly calmed down to think of a solution, and he ended up using the creation lives inside his inner world. Although he could not allow these people to leave his world since he was only a Dao ruler, his unique Chi allowed him, to some extent, access to many of their broken abilities. Breaking Void, the Dark Cloud Pavilion Master disappeared from the room as he chose a talent to help him escape the situation. Unfortunately for him, he reappeared in the same room after another second after navigating through hundreds of spatial layers. Wang Wei suddenly appeared before him and punched him. The Dark Cloud Pavilion was not instantly outclassed despite the situation. He responded by using an ability that turned her body into blue stone and even successfully blocked Wang Wei's terrifying punch. However, this was the extent of his ability in this fight. As soon as his body touched Wang Wei's fist, his face changed because a powerful seal enveloped his inner world and sealed his power. The Pavilion Master still resisted, trying one last effort to remove that seal as swiftly as possible and continue this fight, but Wang Wei released a soul attack to knock him out. Wang Wei muttered as he looked at these people. It would be terrible if my Zerg could be dealt with so easily, especially the hive mind communication system. Maybe I should build a small and independent river of fate for the communication system. This should prevent most people from being capable of interfering with it. Wang Wei nodded as he liked this plan. However, he also understood he was getting ahead of himself. He had a long way to go before he could even attempt this plan. Let's move on to the next step, Wang Wei ordered. With the dark cloud pavilion under his control, Wang Wei swiftly took control of over 80% of the pavilion before targeting the remaining 20%. The pavilion had its own people for assassination tasks. However, the pavilion master was a wise man who still found a way to expand his numbers and preserve his strength in the process. He divided the assassination hall into the inner and outer halls. The inner hall belonged to the Dark Mist assassins, or people close to him, while the outer hall recruited foreigners who served as assassin mercenaries. Anyone can join the assassin hall, they complete missions and receive resources as compensation. The pavilion will even invite talented individuals to join the inner hall, thus, this hall also serves as a recruiting method. Wang Wei controlled the pavilion master to activate the Supreme Summon, which is a rare event in which the pavilion demanded all the outer members to show up for an important meeting. This was the only mandatory thing in the outer hall, and anyone who refused the call could forfeit their identity. Based on the situation, these people might be blacklisted from the entire Lawless zone. With this massive summon, assassins as low as iron and as high as gold swiftly headed to the Dark Cloud Pavilion. Sadly, they were walking into a lion's den. Wang Wei showed no mercy and controlled these people, forcing them into his servitude. Once everything was under control, he prepared to head to the Green Earth Pavilion when he received a talisman from MÖngke. Did something happen? Wang Wei read the information, and soon afterward, the space between him opened a portal to release something. MÖngke traveled to a small planet. At first glance, this planet seemed beautiful and could be described as a heavenly paradise. The mortals were happy, had plenty to eat, and lived fulfilling lives. However, only a few people knew this was just a facade. MÖngke teleported directly to a towering mountain surrounded by a mist. As soon as he arrived, the mist on top of the mountain receded, showing a woman who embodies the idea of a demoness. She wore a long white robe that trailed behind her, but her hair was abnormally dark, it could be described as Vanda Black. She used a dark green powder to shade her lips, and her pointy nails were purple-black. The poison demoness looked down the mountain with her violent eyes. "Barbarian King? Why are you here?" she asked before suddenly remembering something. "I heard you were defeated yesterday." She did not hide the schadenfreude from her voice. "Are you here to get some poison from me to defeat your opponent? Do you think him that kind of person?" MÖngke rebutted. "True," nodded the demoness. "So, what's your purpose here?" "I haven't cultivated a new batch of poisons that are somewhat effective for your body tempering." Her voice contained a hint of annoyance and embarrassment at the last sentence. "I'm here on behalf of the new lord I serve under," MÖngke said calmly, making the demoness squint her eyes. "Surrender or be forced to do so. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1233 Death Route. "Are you serious?" the poison demoness asked. "Do I look like I'm joking? What the hell happened to you?" The poison demoness was truly baffled. She had a decent relationship with the Barbarian King, as he sold the latter unique poisons that helped him temper his willpower. However, he suddenly turned on her out of nowhere. "Aren't you tired of hiding in this tiny place?" MÖngke asked. "Forced to leave on the little resources and being alienated from the outside world. Well, if you join us, you'll have an opportunity to live freely in the outside world." "You're really crazy," the poison demoness stated. "So, is that a no?" MÖngke asked his voice no longer as calm and reassuring as it used to be. The two looked at each other from across the mountain, and after a few seconds, the demoness walked away, and the mist completely swallowed the mountain. Boom! The mountain trembled as MÖngke attacked the arrays. The mountain's defense force activated, releasing thousands of horrifying poisons, but they were useless to him. "Damn it, I must run away," the poison demoness thought as she quickly flew to her palace at the center of the mountain. Although she was an Empyrean, and a scary one due to her high achievements in the Tao of poison, body refiners like MÖngke were her antithesis, rendering her abilities useless. The demoness heard a terrifying sound from a distance, and she knew the bastard easily dealt with her formation, meaning time was running out. She did not care about all the disciples/slaves around the mountain and activated the power from her palace, which was, in fact, her Empyrean artifact called the Poison Garden. The palace turned into a green light that flew into the sky, trying to leave this planet as swiftly as possible. However, the humongous hand of a giant manifested in the void and slapped the palace down, crashing it down to an ocean on the planet. "MÖngke, do you think I'm scared of you? Do you take me for a soft persimmon?" the demoness shrieked, her voice scattering the clouds and agitating the ocean. She immediately summoned the Tao will artifact she had spent so much money on from the Azure Sky Pavilion. Her gaze penetrated the walls to see the intimidating small giant floating outside her palace. The demoness gritted her teeth before going on the offensive frowny face lust poison. She waved her hand to summon a pink fog that surrounded MÖngke. However, the Barbarian king remained calm and composed. Although the enemy had boosted this poison with a Tao will artifact, their utilization of this power was leagues apart. As such, the powerful illusions/projections of beautiful women that he saw meant nothing to him. Additionally, his absolute control over his body prevented him from even reacting to this poison. So, this is a distraction? MÖngke thought, so he focused on the poison palace. As expected, the latter had applied another poison that could create illusions to hide herself and escape. His eyes turned red as he used his technique, the War God Eyes, which was excellent for seeing through falsehood. MÖngke then saw everything. Instead of flying out of the planet while he was distracted, the palace hid deep underwater, hoping he would not notice it, forcing him to search for it mindlessly like a chicken who had lost its head. MÖngke secretly shook his head before opening his mouth and inhaling. He instantly swallowed all the water and sea life on the ocean, leaving the planet bare. "You should realize I've been lenient so far, but this is my last warning. Surrender peacefully. Otherwise, it'll start to get rough." "Do you think this is over?" "No, this is just the beginning," the poison demoness declared with gritted teeth. She knew the poison would not be that effective, but the effects were truly subpar compared to her calculations. The demoness was proud of this poison. She made the people of this planet so happy to absorb the 6 emotions and 7 desires from them to cultivate this poison, and yet, it was such a major failure. She exhaled to calm down. Now that things had come to this, she had no choice but to use her last resort. A black, majestic, metallic dragon rushed out of her palace, looking at MÖngke with terrifying eyes. "A metallic dragon?" MÖngke asked. The creature was so lifelike, and even its aura was similar to the ones he'd read about. But his eyes quickly saw the truth. "No, this is a puppet, probably the work of the puppet demon." MÖngke looked at the palace with a strange expression. "It's common knowledge that the puppet demon lusts after your beauty. What did you do for him to build such a thing for you? Bastard, do you want me to claw your eyes out?" The poison demoness yelled, almost losing all her composers. "I only promised to owe him a great debt." "If you say so." "I'll kill you," she screamed, controlling the dragon to rip the bastard apart. However, MÖngke calmly shook his head. Many people believed the barbarian race's contradiction with the innate demon gods was recent, but only a few people know that we used to hunt dragons during the innate acquired war. In fact, hunting dragons used to be a part of culture. It was a way for any warrior to prove their might. MÖngke grinned. "I always thought it was unfortunate that this custom was no longer in place. However, your little dragon might allow me to live some of my childhood fantasies." He clenched his fist before attacking, dragon-slaying fist, penetrating spear. MÖngke's attack released a piercing attack that left a hole in the dragon puppet. The hole immediately released a green poisonous gas, but such a thing was useless to him. So, he continued his attack. Dragon-slaying fist, destruction hammer. He appeared above the dragon's head and used a brutal attack that pulverized the creature's cranium. However, the puppet was still moving despite losing its head. Its metallic claws and dragon tail continued attacking MÖngke, who easily evaded. With his eyes, he soon found the puppet core, and his body flew into the creature to rip it out from the other side. The poison demoness looked at this with hopelessness. She prepared this expensive puppet in case she had to deal with MÖngke or any other body-refining bastards one day. However, she did not expect the bastard to be this powerful. "Don't make me break your palace," MÖngke declared. He knew if he broke her proven Dao artifact, it would take some time to fix, thus rendering her unable to perform at full capacity. Such a fact could delay their plans to end this era, so the best way to deal with her surrender was for her to give up now. The poison demoness sat on a throne in one of the rooms in her garden. She looked at MÖngke outside with loathing and hatred. However, when she saw him clenched his fist, she exhaled to calm down before deactivating the garden's defenses. Not long after, the barbarian appeared in her throne room, and the demoness did not stop looking at him with hatred. "If only I didn't lose that poison," she said with gritted teeth. "I would have you beg for your life before killing you." "Oh. What kind of poison would make you so confident?" "Deathroot poison. That's a tier 12 poison that can even kill a paragon. How on earth would you get your hands on such a thing?" MÖngke asked, his expression not hiding his doubt. "It was broken, already reduced to tier 10, the demoness explained. To restore that poison, I planted it inside my grand mist world and killed every living being. Then, I had to recreate these creatures and repeat the process 3 billion times before the thing fully revived. I spent so much time and effort." Her eyes turned red as the memory of what happened resurfaced, along with the uncontrollable anger. She spent so much time and energy, even almost dying once the Deathroot had to experience tribulation before returning to its original power. Then, not long after I succeeded, one of my disciples took it and ran away. "What horrible luck," MÖngke commented. "If I still had it, this ending would have been different." "Not necessarily," MÖngke replied. "In the Lawless zone, even tier 12 resources are affected, meaning the Deathroot poison's power could not exceed that of the Empyrean realm. As such, MÖngke was confident in dealing with it while still here. The information about the Deathroot seems important, so let me tell Wang Wei." MÖngke's finger forced out a drop of blood that condensed into a communication talisman that flew into the distance. Then, he looked at the poison demoness. "Before meeting the new boss, I have a proposition for you." "What is it?" "Do you want to become my new wife?" MÖngke asked. "Bastard, what did you say?" "You heard me," MÖngke replied. "You're such a talent that it would be a waste not to try to have you." The barbarian race has cultivated poison masters for various reasons, including medicine, body tempering, and to use against their enemy. There are even a few tribes with a poison spirit temple. One of MÖngke's wives also cultivates poison Dao, but she is nothing compared to this demoness. That's why he would buy poison from her. If you accept my offer, I can talk to the new boss to treat you better while you're under his service," MÖngke said with a grin. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1234 Dulgun vs. Puppet Demon. Dulgun arrived before an enormous black cauldron floating in the void. She had over 100 people behind them, all in rank 11 but from different paths. She was still dressed regally, and the serpent-shaped staff in her hands accentuated her noble aura. "The barbarian king's wife," said a cold but tired voice. "Why are you here?" "My name is Dulgun, and you know that," she stated calmly. "I'm here to ask you to surrender and follow me peacefully." The void was momentarily quiet before the puppet demon stated, "It seems the barbarian king did not come." "Go away. I don't have time to waste on you." Dulgun remained calm, and she did not utter another word. She raised her staff to release a red light that enveloped the people behind her, War God's blessing. These cultivators' auras suddenly increased significantly. To be precise, their strength rose by 3-fold. There were a few individuals whose strengths were on par with 7-fold, and they immediately reached the peak of the Empyrean realm. Dulgun's men roared as they sensed the power coursing through their veins. They loved going on missions with the queen because they could fight all out without worrying about their lives. Dulgun waved her staff again, this time releasing a white light. For the second blessing, she removed these men's sense of pain so they could fight without any concerns or restraint. An elderly man dressed in a black robe, heavy bags under his eyes, scattered white hair, and a pair of creepy eyes appeared before the group. "What's the meaning of this?" the puppet demon asked. "Attack," Dulgun said as an explanation, and her men did not hesitate. The fastest of them condensed a bolt of lightning in his palm before throwing it at the puppet demon. A warrior clad in black armor that covered it from head to toe appeared before the demon and cut off the lightning bolt with its long sword. The puppet demon had received the message loud and clear. With a thought, he summoned an army of millions of puppets that looked exactly like the first warrior. This puppet legion was perfectly aligned like a well-trained military. As soon as they appeared, they activated an array that blessed all their strength to the commander or the first warrior who protected their master. The commander puppet's long blade released a dark light before slashing toward Dulgun. Her men came before her to erect a shield, but something unexpected occurred. The slash disappeared, and when it reappeared, it had already hit someone called the Fire Ash Empyrean, cutting her body and soul into 100%. However, the Fire Ash Empyrean did not scream in pain, nor did her eyes show any despair at the fact she was instantly killed. On the contrary, her eyes contained this obvious smirk, and it did not take long for the puppet demon to know why. Life Goddess Blessing. Dulgun expertly used her blessing Dao by releasing a green light from her staff that returned the Fire Ash Empyrean to her peak state. Anyone who looked at her would not know she was someone who had died less than a second ago. Her soldiers roared in excitement before rushing toward the opponent. Although they were heavily outnumbered, these men did not care and fought as if they were protecting their families. The word defense did not exist in their vocabulary, as they used one powerful attack after another. And every time they were severely injured, a green light would descend from the sky to return them to their peak state. There were rumors that the Barbarian king's wife was behind his operation. However, who would have thought she was so capable, the puppet demon thought. However, little did he know how stupid his thoughts were. Dulgun was an everlasting Empyrean, and only talented individuals can achieve such a thing. As such, he should have immediately taken her seriously after laying eyes on her. It's probably best for me to end this fight as soon as possible in case the Barbarian king is not far from here, he thought. If there was one person all the leaders of the Lawless zone hated to fight the most, it would definitely be the Barbarian king. The brute was extremely powerful, but on top of that, he was essentially unkillable. No attack worked on him, and underhanded methods like poison or assassination were also useless. As the puppet demon was deciding on his next move, Dulgun had already chosen her next move. Affliction, non-flesh life curse. Her Dao did not only allow her to give people blessings but also afflictions or curses. For this fight, she used an affliction that targeted non-flesh creatures like puppets. Her staff released a brown light that enveloped the void, and as soon as it passed through the puppets, a startling change occurred. Many of the puppets melted, releasing a decaying odor. A few survived, but their aura was drastically weaker, and their bodies seemed to have turned rusty, thus limiting their mobility or other abilities. "Damn it," cursed the puppet demon, preparing to do something. However, he greatly underestimated his opponent, thus losing the momentum of this battle. The Fire Ash Empyrean and the Thunder-Piercing Empyrean used a Thunderflame Tornado attack, killing the commander and most of the surviving puppets. The demon immediately tried to summon more of his creation, but his face contorted as he realized Dulgun had used her Dao will to block the surrounding space, cutting access to most of his legions. The demon then calmly watched as a group of attacks rushed toward him. He could tell these attacks were not enough to kill him but severely injured him so he could be captured. "Do you think I'm helpless without my puppets?" he thought with a sneer. Unfortunately, these people did not know that he was the ultimate puppet. The puppet demon calmly raised his left hand, and it turned into a shield that was tall enough to reach above his head. The shield blocked these hundreds of attacks, and then, he went on the offensive. Myriad Dao Core, Space, the puppet demon's heart, which he had replaced with a unique puppet core, activated. A rune representing space flashed on the core, and the demon's right hand turned into a sword. Dimension slash. The demon created 2 slashes. The first targeted the space blockage that prevented his access to his puppets, and the other directly targeted Dulgun. However, she ignored the attack and focused on ensuring the opponent remained isolated. Meanwhile, 2 of her men appeared before her and released all the blood in their bodies to form a cocoon that protected them. The blood cocoon was effective, allowing Dulgun to focus on her opponent. She used another affliction targeting puppets, but the demon was unaffected for 2 reasons. Firstly, he teleported away and activated the curse rune from his core. Dulgun countered by using a domain technique, changing the surroundings into a dark universe composed of curses. The puppet demon opened his mouth to fire a light beam that purified this entire domain in a matter of seconds. However, Dulgun's previous attack was only to buy time for her real trump card, the war god descend. An intimidating spirit appeared before everyone. He was almost as tall as MÖngke and muscular, too. However, he was not as big as MÖngke, and his body was more streamlined. The spirit had pants and boots but not a shirt. It looked at one of Dulgun's men and showed contempt. However, in the end, the spirit entered its chosen vessel. The war god vessel was a Tao ruler with a special inner world designed to receive the power of the war god spirit. As soon as the vessel fused with the spirit, his eyes turned golden, and his aura became fierce. The vessel raised his hand to condense an axe. Then, it moved so fast that the puppet demon could barely perceive him. The vessel slammed its axe on its opponent with unparalleled force and terror. The demon reacted swiftly, turning his core to the gold rune and the defense rune. The puppet demon's arms turned golden as he crossed them, with a thin but potent shield surrounding them. However, this was useless. The axe shattered his left arm as it contained a brilliant skill that targeted a person's weakness. The puppet demon barely saved his right arm by using the half-hearted indestructible rune he's been working on. However, the arm was still cracked and on the verge of being useless. "This vessel truly cannot contain my power," said the war god spirit in a voice that contained echo. He raised his axe for a second attack. The puppet demon activated his space rune to exchange places with one of his puppet debris that survived the previous battle. However, to his horror, he discovered his opponent was still before him, and the axe was rapidly lowering toward his head. Despair enveloped his mind as it was too late for him to move. Clink. The sounds of metal clashing echoed in the void. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1235 The 5 Demons. The war god spirit looked at the person who suddenly appeared and blocked his attack. Red skin was the first thing he noticed about the newcomer, followed by how odd the person's life energy was. It was as vibrant as some of the best body refiners, but this evil and twisted sensation was on top. "Brother," said the puppet demon. "I'm glad you're here. I couldn't possibly let you die in vain, could I?" The flesh demon, Dulgun said. "There were rumors you two were related. It seems that it's true." "You've crossed the line," said the flesh demon, his black clothes perfectly fitting his well-toned muscles. He was a handsome middle-aged man despite his odd red skin, but there was this evil aura around him that instantly made people weary of him. "Crossed the line?" said the man who enjoys taking others' body parts to strengthen his flesh. Dulgun sneered. "Didn't you once boldly proclaim you would turn my husband into one of your flesh collections? Well, this is your opportunity." The flesh demon quietly stared at her. "The master never truly trusted you or the Ruthless king, believing that your background meant that you were not one of us. Your actions have proven him correct. No need to use him to scare us. Since we made this move, it means we're ready to confront him." The flesh demon frowned, wondering where the Barbarian king's confidence originated from. Even if he gained some success in his cultivation, it was not wise to attack the other factions and antagonize the entire Lawless zone. "Remember, you're the one who chose this path," the flesh demon declared before looking at his sworn brother. can you still fight? I can, but with only one arm, my strength will drastically reduce. The flesh demon pondered briefly, and in the next moment, he pushed out his humerus bone and handed it over. Will that work? Of course. The puppet demon put the bone in his left socket, and instantly, it turned into a new puppet arm. He moved it around, nodding in satisfaction. It'll support you from the back so you can go on the offensive. The flesh demon ripped out his spine before turning it into a bow. Then, he expelled a muscle from his thigh to use as the bowstring. He pulled the thing, and the resentments in his body from years of experimenting on people's flesh condensed into an arrow. He pointed the arrow toward the war god spirit and fired without hesitation. The spirit casually turned his head to avoid the arrow, but the thing turned around without losing its momentum and speed and rushed toward him. No, the arrow became even faster. The spirit waved his axe to destroy it but frowned in the process. The war god spirit immediately noticed a black spot on his hand. A curse? Moreover, it's a potent one based on resentment. A golden light descended from the sky, curing him of this curse. However, this was just the beginning. The flesh demon started to fire thousands of arrows, all moving at unreasonable speed and containing a terrifying curse that resents all life. The war god spirit could only evade while complaining about how weak his vessel was. Meanwhile, the other people Dulgun bought had to confront these arrows. With her help, they barely survived these powerful arrows. However, they were not useless, leaving the puppet demon ample time and opportunity to move on this battlefield as he saw fit. He activated his core and teleported a few meters away from her. The puppet demon looked at her with derision and hatred. You'll make an excellent piece in my collection, while your husband's body is the best material to upgrade my brother's body. It seems I must do this the hard way, Dulgun stated, and her staff released myriad color lights that entered her body. The puppet demon's face changed, and he rushed over for the kill, but she casually swung her staff to counter his sword. The puppet demon planned to go for a flurry of attacks. He even activated his speed rune to ensure he overwhelmed his opponent. However, he had to pause as he realized his sword had decayed after coming into contact with that staff. Dulgun took this opportunity to go on the offensive. She rushed toward him to punch him into oblivion. However, the demon was fast, so he moved backward. Dulgun moved her staff counterclockwise to release a potent pulling force that drew the demon to her before punching him through his chest and holding his heart. That idiot really left his core in the same place as his heart, she thought before putting a seal on the core, shutting down this puppet body. The puppet demon was decisive and immediately abandoned this body after realizing her intention. His soul flew out, trying to get away. Although this body was his greatest work, it did not matter. He could build another one as long as he was alive and free. Dulgun predicted his movement and acted. Her staff released a blue light that forced the puppet demon's soul back to the puppet. Simultaneously, she detected 5 terrifying arrows rushing toward her back. She gritted her teeth and held on. Boom! The moment she forced the soul back into the puppet, the arrows hit. Her defense broke apart, and she was hit. Black blood oozed from Dulgun's mouth, but she sighed in relief. She was in the infant fiend god realm, and she blessed her flesh, which allowed her to survive that attack. She gazed fiercely at that damn demon. What a stupid idiot, thought the flesh demon. It seems like I must run away. In that case, I need a distraction and cannon fodder. Blood suddenly spread from the pores in his skin, and each drop turned into these enormous red spiders. These flesh puppets should do the work, he thought. However, as soon as he had this thought, his sense of danger suddenly went haywire. The flesh demon trusted his instinct since he acquired it after grafting a genius brain into his body, which was born with a 6th sense ability. He looked in the distance, and his face paled. He immediately ordered his puppets to attack while also using his bow to the limit. Sadly, the other people risked their lives to stop him. During this time, Dulgun had raised her staff to the sky and muttered, "The spirit of light, justice, and all that is pure, I wish to cleanse this world of an ultimate filth, so please give me your blessing." A golden light descended from the sky to envelop Dulgun. She then waved her staff, spreading the light to every corner of the battlefield. The flesh demon tried to run away, but it was useless. The light was fast, and it forcefully purified the resentment in his body. No, he roared. His flesh grafting art requires resentment to keep his body intact. It's one of the keys to why he has a body on par with indestructible emperors without having to experience the pain and struggle of body refining. The flesh demon's body turned into a red goo similar to slime before turning into a vaguely humanoid shape. The process repeated a few times as he tried to prevent his collapse. Dulgun watched all of this with a frown, and after pondering briefly, she provided him with some resentment to prevent him from completely collapsing. She sealed him before putting him away. The flesh demon was supposed to be husband's target, but his presence saves us a lot of time, Dulgun thought. She sent a message to her husband before taking a moment to heal herself and her companions before heading to her next target, the ghost demoness. This person's way of fighting is similar to the puppet demon as she relies on her vast army of ghosts. As such, she was the perfect counter to this kind of enemy. Poison demoness garden, repeat what you just said, the demoness demanded, still baffled by what she heard. You heard me, said MÖngke. I knew all of you men were the same. Think about all the poison you can make from my blood, MÖngke persuaded. The answer is still no, the poison demoness replied with a sneer. That's a shame, MÖngke sighed. It seems he will have to find another poison wife. Anyway, you should see the new boss. He pointed his finger before him to open a portal, and with a wave of his hand, he sent the demoness and her garden into it. All right, cursed demon, here I come, MÖngke uttered before disappearing. The battle with the cursed demon will be like the poison demon. However, he looked forward to fighting the flesh demon since he heard he was an accomplished body refiner. Dark Cloud Pavilion, Wang Wei calmly looked at the woman before him while processing the information MÖngke sent him. A Paragon tier poison that has disappeared? That indeed might be valuable news. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1236 Green Earth Pavilion. Wang Wei pointed his finger to the woman's forehead, instantly souring her expression. As the seal entered her sea of consciousness and targeted her soul, a terrifying soul poison rushed from the poison demoness mind, targeting him. Although it appeared she had given, that was far from the truth. Someone of her cultivation level and status would never give up hope of freedom until she exhausted every possible measure. As such, when MÖngke did not kill or immediately control her, the demoness planned her escape. Sadly for her, she jumped from one monster's mouth to another. Ultimately, she sighed, resigning herself to her fate. What can you tell me about the deathroot poison? Wang Wei asked. What is there to say? I spent so much time and effort cultivating the thing, but someone stole it. Who stole it? It was an apprentice. No, not even an apprentice, but a medicine slave I bought, the poison demoness replied nonchalantly. Wang Wei frowned. His intuition told him this news was important, but he could not pinpoint how. His eyes turned gray as he divined some information, but a vaguely familiar fog blocked his true sight. He tried other divinations and discovered a clue. Where did you get the poison? Wang Wei asked. A fortunate encounter. In this place or outside? Of course, this place. I haven't had anything to do with the outside world for a while. Wang Wei frowned, wondering whether the Lawless zone could give birth to a fortunate encounter of such a level. Although rare, it should be possible if someone who came to hide in this place brought the poison and died, thus leaving it as a fortunate encounter. You said you bought the medicine slave? From who? He asked. The Green Earth Pavilion, the demoness replied. Them? They sell people? One of the biggest sources of wealth from the Green Earth and Azure Sky Pavilion is selling slaves, the poison demoness calmly explained. They even used the 4 gangs to help, especially the Crazy Thief gang. That would explain the source of all the ordinary women and men in MÖngke's battle coliseum, Wang Wei thought. Did you make a fuss to the Green Earth Pavilion after the medicine slave escaped with your property? I did, the demoness replied. But they only offered twice the price I bought her for, which was nothing compared to the poison's value. It seems you might be immediately useful, Wang Wei muttered. He instructed her of something before turning into one of the demoness strings of her. Green Earth Pavilion. The poison demoness calmly waited in the room where the pavilion received VIPs of VIPs. She had made trouble, asking to meet their pavilion master, and after she refused to be handled by their main manager, these people had no choice but to contact their leader. A few minutes later, the Earth Pavilion master entered the room, followed by 2 guards. He was a fat middle-aged man, wearing a luxurious white gold robe with jades and gold jewelry pieces as accessories. He was a great emperor with a cultivation of 59%, and his aura reeked of debauchery/hedonism. It was apparent to anyone that this man had his cultivation achievements because of his wealth, and if not for his immortality, his body would be weak due to indulgence in food, alcohol, drugs, and sex. However, some credit should be granted to him since he could still use his power, meaning his Tao heart was intact, and his state of mind, no matter how twisted, had some sense of purpose and direction. A look of disdain flashed in the poison demoness eyes. However, she still gave the Earth Pavilion some respect, mainly because of the twin bodyguards accompanying him. Meanwhile, the Earth Pavilion controlled himself and did not gaze at her with any lustful thoughts or intent. On the contrary, he showed her the most respect despite detecting the disdain in her eyes. Poison Master, what happened to you to make such a fuss? The Earth Pavilion Master asked with a businesslike smile. The demoness was about to open her mouth and make a fuss about her poison, even demanding them to search for her medicine slave on the outside. However, Wang Wei did not give her, or anyone else, the time to react. A group of strings suddenly appeared out of nowhere to capture the Pavilion Master. The twins reacted and tried to protect him, but everything was sudden and fast. They did not react in time. As precautions to personally meeting the poison demoness, the Pavilion Master prepared numerous pills and talismans, mostly ways to deal with her poison. However, he also prepared if he needed to run away, so his talisman tried to take him away from the situation. Sadly for him, these strings contained the power of fate, thus blocking all possibilities of escape that he could think of. Wang Wei then appeared in the room with the Pavilion Master as his captive. How did you bypass our defenses? The fat businessman asked. It's not as hard as you imagine, Wang Wei replied casually. Put down the Pavilion Master, said one of the Fire Ice twin Empyreans. And you may still walk out of this room alive, finished the other. Wang Wei focused on them. False everlasting Empyreans? And 2 of them? These 2 used to be eternal emperors but failed to become everlasting. However, they had a Tao will and secret vaults. Kill this bastard, said the Earth Pavilion Master. The twins hesitated. They could cultivate peacefully because the Pavilion Master was an excellent business. If they lost him, the Green Earth Pavilion would not last long despite being the most powerful martial force. Don't hesitate, the fat man continued. If you kill him swiftly enough, it won't matter whether he kills me since you can revive me. The Pavilion Master was an emperor, so he had prepared plenty of resources for his fast revival. You're really the embodiment of not judging a book by its cover, Wang Wei commented, silently praising this man for his boldness and quick thinking. Maybe having such a capable merchant under his command was not bad. The twins glanced at each other before taking action. Their cultivation was 84% Grand Tao source, but they used their boosting techniques. The first one was from their Empyrean artifact, which was a pair of red and blue throwing discs. The artifact gave them another 2% boost. They followed that with a soul resonating technique, and since they were twins that did everything together since birth, including proving the Tao simultaneously, they had another 2% boost. Finally, they used their best skill, Tao will fusion, which boosted them to the limit of the Empyrean realm, 99%. One twin released a terrifying heat, and the other turned the other half of the room into an ice tundra. They did not throw their artifact but held it in their hands before rushing for a close combat attack. That Tao will fusion technique is actually brilliant, even better than the one monk used when he added his muscle will, Wang Wei calmly commented. He pointed at the twins to release a yin-yang symbol that rotated counterclockwise. Before the twins could react, their Tao will separated, and their soul resonance also dissipated. Even their artifacts, which were usually perfectly in sync, seemed out of balance. Then, before they could think of another solution to this situation, the yin-yang symbol turned into a seal that captured them. It's over, the Earth Pavilion master thought. After so many years, after countless battles and catastrophes, his life has ended today. He felt sad, but a part of him always knew this day would come. Factions in this place do not usually last long and have a cyclical nature, and sadly, it seems it was time for a new era. After taking control of the upper echelon of the Green Earth Pavilion, it was relatively easy for Wang Wei to secretly take over the rest. He did not spend long in this place before heading to the Azure Sky Pavilion. Time was of the essence since he needed to control all these factions before the Hidden Master took note of the changes. Although he was confident in himself, he was unsure whether he could be victorious against the latter under these circumstances. Wang Wei took a moment to see if he could find any more information about the medicine slave that stole the death root. However, the pavilion's record only stated that it was a woman, and she was a loose cultivator with no family or background, hence why she was targeted. Without much to go on and divination failing him, Wang Wei headed for the Azure Sky Pavilion. His plan for them was slightly different. He detected one of the spies they had in the Green Earth Pavilion and released the news that he was a newcomer to the Lawless Zone, and he came to sell a piece of important news that involved the Azure Sky Pavilion. The information was about the secret routes they used to acquire resources from the outside. This news was, in fact, true, as Wang Wei had acquired it from the merchant that his Fate's shadow guard accidentally saved. After setting the bait, Wang Wei waited. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know if report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1237 Lawless Iron. Damn these stupid people. I'm trying to sell them such valuable information, but they act as if I'm mad, Wang Wei cursed as he walked out of the Green Earth Pavilion. He looked around, sighing to himself. He searched around the city to buy a place to stay but felt everything was too pricey. At first, he thought of just living inside his grand mist wheel but thought this was too embarrassing. So, he gritted his teeth and found an inn. Despite being an inn, the room he rented was extremely large due to the use of space arrays. Wang Wei rested while thinking of his next move. As he sat cross-legged on his cushion, deep in meditation, a purple mist enveloped his room. Who dares, he yelled. However, his actions only made it easier for the mist to enter his body. As such, his desperate attempts to deal with this potent poison proved useless, and he fell to the ground as everything turned black. Where am I? Wang Wei asked. He looked around, and he was in this damp room with his hands tied like he was on a cross and about to be executed. He noticed a potent sealing technique severely suppressed his cultivation, and the cuffs were also a sealing artifact that added another layer of seal. You're awake, said a rough but serious voice. Wang Wei's eyes moved away from the torture devices in the room to a serious-looking man dressed in black and a scar over his left eye. Wang Wei knew this man for a variety of reasons. Firstly, he was part of the information he bought. Secondly, he had never passed out, so he saw every part of being transported to this dungeon. Wang Wei frowned. The spirit particle he previously separated did not detect the Sky Pavilion Master anywhere near this place. Since he's not here, I must draw him out. Bang! To the warden's horror, Wang Wei ripped the cuffs in his hand as if his sealing was useless, and before he could react, Wang Wei was holding him by the neck. Have a nice little nap, Wang Wei uttered before dropping this expert torturer to the ground. Then, he started turning this place upside down, beating anyone who was in his way and freeing all the other prisoners. As expected, it did not take long for the person he was waiting for to appear. A man dressed in a luxurious, long, dark green robe with pointy shoulder pads and one eye closed walked into this prison. He had a calm demeanor, almost snake-like. He looked at the destruction around him and his men on the floor. "How useless are you people," the Sky Pavilion master uttered before glancing at Wang Wei. "Something is fishy about you." The information he received was that a loose cultivator was selling information about their secret route, but why would such a powerful loose cultivator lack resources? "I can say the same about you," Wang Wei rebutted, and he was telling the truth. He was on guard against the Azure Sky Pavilion for one reason: they were the oldest faction of the Lawless Zone. They survived the parasites' attempt to clean up this place and remained a top faction after the political power was redistributed. Such longevity meant they had a deeper foundation. A profound foundation meant unknown and unexpected trump cards. The information said he was an insurgent Dao ruler who fused his inner world with an Empyrean artifact that was perfectly suited for his Dao. However, they were wrong, Wang Wei thought. He fused with a broken Paragon artifact. Such a potent detection technique, the Sky Pavilion master uttered after detecting that Wang Wei saw through his inner world. "Now, I'm more curious about your true identity." The Azure Sky Pavilion was a family business that had existed in the Lawless Zone for countless years, and all family members had excellent business skills. The Pavilion master's business senses told him capturing this person would be an excellent opportunity. He activated his Earth Dao to surround his arms with rocks before also activating his Dao Will artifact. Strength of Earth, he rushed to his opponent to devastate them. After being empowered by the concept of the Earth itself, the Pavilion master could fight directly with some of the best body refiners. Sadly for him, Wang Wei had labeled him as a threat and went all out. Wang Wei blocked the attack with his arm and secretly frowned. As expected, this man was not simple. This punch looked like a straightforward attack, but the bastard was secretly using his Paragon artifact to influence his mind/soul. Although the artifact was restricted in power level by the environment, its essence was still of a higher quality. The Pavilion master used the higher essence to influence his opponent's mind and soul. In other words, people without a Paragon soul or strong will are easily influenced by him. Unfortunately, he met the wrong opponent. As soon as the two were closed, Wang Wei used his Fate Shackle innate talent to basically rewrite this man's past and made it as if the Paragon artifact did not perfectly suit him/his Dao. And since the Sky Pavilion master's insurgency originated from that artifact, his strength drastically decreased. Wang Wei then immediately went for his throat in an attempt to catch him as swiftly as possible. However, his attempt failed. When his arm was less than 10 centimeters from his opponent, his own strength suddenly decreased. His cultivation realm was suppressed to the Emperor realm, and even his body refining realm dropped down to the Dragon Phoenix realm. The Pavilion master used this opportunity to escape. "What in the nine hells?" Wang Wei commented. His power had returned, but he was slightly baffled. "I can't believe you forced me to use it in less than 10 seconds of fighting," the Pavilion master sighed. His aura returned to its normal state as this ruthless man sacrificed all the lives inside his inner world to remove the shackle on his fate and regain his connection to the artifact. This kind of sacrifice was permanent, meaning he could not recreate these lives again, showing his ruthlessness and decisiveness. He then opened his closed eyes, revealing an all-black pupil. The environment suddenly changed. Wang Wei's strength once again returned to the Emperor realm, and even the Sky Pavilion master's aura had a drop in strength to the early stage of the Empyrean realm. "Lawless iron," Wang Wei commented. "Any unique environment will evolve unique material. That's one of the fundamental laws of heaven and earth." This law also applied to the Lawless Zone, and the unique material this place created was the lawless iron, which was an ore with the same effect as the cultivation suppression of this place. "I thought the parasites destroyed all the lawless iron mines in this place," Wang Wei asked. "Lawless iron mines are rare and would appear in small quantities. However, when the parasites cleaned up this place, one of their main targets was the mines." "No, that's not important," Wang Wei continued. "The truly impressive thing is the fact that you found a weapon master that can refine lawless iron into such a small, powerful, and detailed artifact. Lawless iron is valuable even in the outside world because of its main use in creating prisons to hold powerful creatures or entities. However, It's not as valuable as an ore to create weapons or artifacts because of how difficult it is to retain its power of suppression after being processed or when fused with other metals. One of the Lawless iron's natural characteristics is that it works better when there are large quantities of it. That's why Wang Wei found it incredible that he had an eye artifact with this effect. You're very knowledgeable and astute, but you talk too much for a prisoner, the Sky Pavilion master stated as he once again encased his arms into a rock armor before going on the offense. I had no choice but to, Wang Wei replied with a smirk. Then, to the rock man's horror, they clashed with both of them intact, meaning their strength was on par. You? How is that possible? Wang Wei smirked. He was not conversing mid-fight with an opponent for no reason. In this short time, he got a basic enough understanding of the composition and effect of Lawless iron to use his freedom Dao to become free of its effect. He did not return to his peak, but he regained his Empyrean level strength and his limit indestructibility, which was enough for him to deal with the situation. Damn you. The battle waged for a while, but ultimately, Wang Wei was the winner. In the same cultivation realm/strength, it's a sure thing to bet on Wang Wei. As the Sky Pavilion lay on the ground, he held the Lawless iron eye in his palm. Truly masterful work, he praised. I have plenty of resources but not enough professional talent to put them to use. Now, it seems I'm about to recruit a master weapon refiner. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1238 A talented ally Wang Wei followed the Sky Pavilion Master to a sun in a cosmic star area of the Lawless Zone. At the center of the sun was what Wang Wei would describe as a smithing house that used the sun to create samadhi flames for weapon refining. Wang Wei walked into a room with a muscular elderly man in a simple black robe, a long white beard twisted in a braid, and using a hammer on the mold of a sword. The sight was odd because the elderly man had the aura of an everlasting Empyrean, but his way of refining weapons resembled a blacksmith instead of a cultivator. The blacksmith did not pay attention to their presence and continued hammering. Once he finished, he used his fingers to draw a simple rune on the air that fused with the sword, releasing a golden light indicating its complexion. The blacksmith looked at the sword briefly and shook his head in disappointment. He threw it to the small weapon pile next to him before finally focusing on the people present. Pavilion Master? Are you here for another unreasonable request? I told you there is a limit to even my skills. No, that's not why I'm here, the Sky Pavilion Master swiftly said. This is Empyrean Wang, and he is, well, the new leader of the pavilion. I brought him to make your acquaintance. The blacksmith was not stupid and understood the situation, so he gazed at Wang Wei. His eyes were weird, it was as if he was appraising a weapon. Wang Wei was slightly surprised by this man's detection technique, so he did not resist much. With such a unique soul and subdao of refining, it's a shame you're a combatant, the blacksmith uttered. Thank you for the compliment, Wang Wei replied. But how do I address you? You can call me the Flame Blacksmith, and as long as you accept the same terms I had with the Pavilion Master, I don't care who the new leader is. Wang Wei already learned the relationship between those two was not of servitude but more of an equal partnership. I have no problem with keeping the previous agreement, but my goal is not to be caged in this small place. I have goals and ambitions I must accomplish in the outside world. So, can you leave this place and be more active? The Flame Blacksmith looked at him briefly. Then, his eyes suddenly turned fiery red. You are, so, that's how it is, that time has already arrived. He looked at the Pavilion Master. Give us a moment to talk. The latter looked at Wang Wei, who nodded to him. Do you know my identity? The Flame Blacksmith asked. I do not. I'm the direct disciple of Paragon Blood Rune. Paragon Blood Rune? One of the two primals of the Skill Dao Association. That's right. From what I know, he only had 2 direct disciples, and they were all paragons, Wang Wei stated. My master left his inheritance scattered all over the world to find disciples, and I only passed the test after he died, Black Flame explained. He's met his teacher a handful of times from Limbo, but despite such an odd situation, he was acknowledged as the third direct disciple and received Paragon blood runes teaching. That explains it, Wang Wei nodded. But why are you telling me such sensitive information? For many reasons, but primarily, I want us to be straightforward with our identities or backgrounds to ensure a better alliance or cooperation. Background? You seem sure that I'm not a simple loose cultivator, Wang Wei stated. These people have erased, twisted, or hidden history, so only a few top lineages still have perfectly intact records. The fact that you recognized my master's name and knew how many disciples he had proved you're not from an ordinary background. Fair point, Wang Wei nodded. My name is Wang Wei, from the Dao opening sect. Them? My master did say the chances of the destined one having a deep connection with them were very high, the flame blacksmith uttered. Oh. What else did he say? He said that if I have a chance to participate in the closure of this era, I should take it. The blessings from my achievements will help me tremendously in the next era, an era which will be even more brilliant than the golden era. Your master is wise, Wang Wei said, but his mind was thinking of something else. Based on the information the sect gave me, the Blood Rune Paragon's goal was always to get his hands on the refiner Dao position. However, he also accepted his limitations, thus focusing on cultivating an apprentice to accomplish his dreams. His other two apprentices have great achievements, but they did not meet his expectations. Could he be trying again with this flame blacksmith? Does he have this much potential? If his deduction is true, then an alliance with the flame blacksmith will not only help him in his fight against the parasites but also be a perfect opportunity to expand the Dao opening sect's alliances. With this mindset, Wang Wei had a deep conversation with the blacksmith, laying out the groundwork for their alliance/cooperation. Finally, he left with the Sky Pavilion master. By the way, what was the unreasonable request you asked of him? Wang Wei casually asked after returning to the Azure Sky Pavilion. I wanted him to refine an artifact with lawless iron that was as small as sand, maybe even smaller. That is unreasonable, Wang Wei agreed. But why would you want something like that? No, he said it was a customer request. Who would want such a thing? My apologies, I can't say. Excuse you? No, don't get me wrong, Azure Sky swiftly said. It's not that I don't want to say, but I can't. The customer made me sign the most restrictive contract not to reveal their info. I couldn't even keep any records of this request. Why all the intense secrecy? Wang Wei complained, feeling something was odd. Why did you even entertain such a request in the first place? I had no choice, Azure Sky declared. These parasites crippled my family's connection to the outside world, and it was that person who reinstated it. In fact, this person basically controls our lifeline when it comes to accessing resources from the outside. Although they never interfered or made things difficult for us, it does not change the fact how much power they secretly held in our pavilion. Well, you don't have to worry about that from now on, Wang Wei reassured. Now that he was in control, the pavilions could go through him to get resources. In fact, they will start to operate on a large scale in the outside world while the branch in the Lawless zone will become less important. Wang Wei detected MÖngke and Dulgun had returned, so he went to meet the demons since these people would be underneath him. He needed to assess their potential and know what to expect of them in the upcoming struggles. As such, he gathered all 5 of them, including the poison demoness that he had already met. He sat on a throne, observing all 5 of them. Wang Wei read their fate lines to have a better understanding of their personality, experiences, and capabilities. The poison demoness is an excellent poison cultivator. She's efficient and ruthless in her approach while also keeping a more experimental mindset. However, she becomes useless once her poison does not work. Maybe she should add Gu Dao to expand her repertoire. His gaze turned to the puppet demon. Another ruthless bastard. I guess all of them are ruthless, hence the demon in their name. However, this one even abandoned his flesh and turned himself into a puppet. However, He's too confident in his work as he made such a stupid mistake of leaving his puppet core where his heart was. Once he fixes that and I help him condense the other runes for his myriad Dao core, he will be a force to reckon with. Plus, I can take all his knowledge and experience as a gift for Kai Song. Wang Wei frowned as he looked at the flesh demon. This grafting technique is quite unique, but this bastard went the wrong way. He acquired the body of an indestructible Empyrean but not the strength of one. He used his grafting method to avoid the tedious and painful process of body refining, but that only made his flesh full of flaws and his willpower extremely weak. Despite his potent flesh, this demon did not even achieve willpower manifestation. He even avoided the true power Dao realm tribulations by taking body parts from people who succeeded. Such an act ruined his luck as he achieved strength without paying the price. Wang Wei could tell this bastard would probably be the first to die in the outside world with how terrible his luck and destiny was. So, I must shield this bastard with my own luck and turn him into a genuine body refiner, starting by tempering his willpower. Once he meets my requirements, I can give him my and Monk's body parts to turn him into a top expert. Wang Wei was satisfied with this plan, especially after realizing the flesh demon was the most cunning of these 5 individuals. He will be an excellent pawn if used correctly. He turned to the cursed demon, a young man with a morbidly pale complexion and tattoos of black rose that ran from his neck to his back. He looked nothing extraordinary from the surface. However, it seems he was born with a terrifying bloodline curse. The origin of that curse will probably lead to something interesting, but for now, this is not something I can deal with. Wang Wei pondered. However, if we can find a way to use that bloodline curse as his power, he will be a great asset. Finally, he looked at the ghost demoness. She was an ugly elderly woman dressed in a dark purple robe. Cultivators can change their appearances at will, unless something unexpected occurs, but she chose that ugly appearance despite having no extenuating circumstances. Through the fate line reading technique, he knew it was due to a heartbreak she suffered in her youth, so he no longer cared. If I can fuse her ghost army with the puppet demon's puppet army, I can cultivate a ferocious legion. He knew how deep the parasite's background was, so he needed all the help possible. Now that he had a better understanding of his team, Wang Wei prepared to finish conquering this place by targeting the 4 gangs. He wanted to be as swift as possible since he sensed that time was not on his side. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1239 The Ruthless King. After planning the next step, everyone separated to fulfill their task. Wang Wei chose the Bloodline Gang as his target, and he dealt with them relatively quickly. He lured their leader, a somewhat rare Snow Thunder Leopard, who was a second-tier Earth Primarch, meaning he was on par with an Empyrean but did not have a heaven will. Wang Wei created a secret realm and left his bloodline inside before luring one of the Bloodline Gang members to find it. The poor lad hurried to notify the upper echelon of the gang, and this secret news soon reached the Snow Thunder Leopard, who quickly rushed over. Once that happened, defeating him and taking control of his gang was relatively easy. Wang Wei returned to their base, where 2 of the other groups were already waiting. So, he's the leader of the Grand Mist Gang, Wang Wei commented as he looked at this man that could be described as beautiful due to his many feminine features. Was there any problem? He asked. He sent MÖngke to deal with this person as the Grand Mist Gang Lord because the latter hated Empyreans, Dao rulers, or any cultivators capable of creating lives. He granted me an audience, but after knowing why I came, he immediately turned hostile, MÖngke replied. Wang Wei nodded as such a response was expected. What's your name? Wang Wei asked. However, the Grand Mist Gang Lord just stared at him. Zobo? A good name, Wang Wei nodded. You're a weird man. You have such a strong hatred for us, creators, but you also secretly wish to find one worthy enough to serve, to dedicate your life. I guess it's not so weird since your master treated you so nicely, you probably wanted to relieve that time which was dear to you. Shut up. Don't act like you know me, Zobo yelled. But I do. I would rather die than serve you, Zhou Bo said with gritted teeth. That's fine by me, Wang Wei replied casually. You're not as valuable as you think, especially after I extract your memory on how you survived an Empyrean tier creation tribulation. However, do note that if you kill yourself, I will have the bloodline gang leader desecrate your body and soul by letting him eat you and all your people. You monster, Zhou Bo said with gritted teeth. If there is one person he hated more than those Empyreans who played with life as if it meant nothing, it was that racist bastard. He would rather be subservient to someone else than let that leopard win over him. Let's make a deal, Zhou Bo said. Let me kill that leopard, and my life is yours. As I said, you're not that valuable, Wang Wei replied casually. What you're saying is if I'm way more valuable than him, you'll allow it to happen. Interesting, Wang Wei muttered as he held his chin. I'm open to your bargain. But how will you prove your worth? By becoming an everlasting Empyrean, Zhou Bo said with gritted teeth. Oh. That's right. If you become one of my creatures, I can allow you to retake the creation tribulation to become an everlasting Empyrean. But, can you survive the tribulation? Unlike my original creations, you'll be truly dead once you fail. I'll survive, Zhou Bo declared with gritted teeth. He knew such tribulation would be, at minimum, 10 times harder than a creation tribulation for a regular Grand Mist life trying to become an everlasting, but he did not care. He would put his life on the line to kill that leopard. Well, I look forward to the result, Wang Wei commented. Did you see how he used this man's desire to control him? It seems I have much to learn in the ways of the human heart, MÖngke said to his wife. Yes, you can learn much from observing him. Once this era ends, it might be difficult for the barbarian race to maintain their neutrality, given their participation in ending the parasites. By then, MÖngke will have to deal with many of these elders who are set in their ways, so having leadership and diplomatic skills like Wang Wei will be crucial for him to navigate the situation, especially before he becomes a primal paragon and has absolute power in the clan. Wang Wei turned his focus on the two people from the crazy thief gang that Dulgun, Ghost, and Puppet Demon brought. Who is their leader? These are the vice gang leaders, Dulgun explained. As for their leader, well, he disappeared. He ran away from you? No, she responded. He appeared a while ago to announce to the gang that he was entering a deep state of retreat. He did not show up when we raided their headquarters and controlled everyone. So, he abandoned his men. The gang leader did not abandon us, said Thin Finger, one of the two vice leaders. Wait until his cultivation is successful, he'll come to kill all of you and return our gang to normal. What a strong faith you have in your leader, Wang Wei commented. Do you think this is the first time this has happened? Thin Finger sneered. Shut up, yelled Black Tooth, the other vice gang lord. Do you want to give the enemy all our information? Thin Finger immediately quieted down but still stared ferociously at Wang Wei. Indeed, a reliable leader, Wang Wei commented as he observed their past. However, he could not see their leader clearly as he was enveloped in a black fog. This place is full of unique characters, he thought to himself with a smile. Where is the last? Wang Wei suddenly stopped to look in the distance. Did something happen? MÖngke asked. The last group was captured. Really? Their task was to observe and wait for us, so how could they be captured? Did they disobey their orders? MÖngke asked. No. The martial outlaw gang already knew they were coming. It seems that our movement was leaked, or the Ruthless king detected some kind of danger and preemptively attacked, MÖngke summarized. It seems we must do this more directly, Wang Wei said with squinted eyes. He did not waste time and teleported everybody outside the martial outlaw gang's headquarters, a colossal continent. These people were already awaiting their arrival, all dressed in armor and perfectly lined up. These men are not gangsters. They are a well-trained army that has experienced countless battles, Wang Wei thought. I did not expect you would be the one behind this, Barbarian King, said a handsome middle-aged man with a few strings of white hair in his tightly bun hair, black clothes with dragon's designs, and a regal aura. I thought this was an attack from the 5 demons, continued the Ruthless King. But now, no, this may not even be your doing. He noticed the fact that Wang Wei was the one in front, and he remembered the news he heard not long ago. Someone defeated the Barbarian King. And who might you be? Wang Wei did not immediately answer him as someone else caught his attention. Two people stood behind the Ruthless King, and he knew they were his sons, given how much they resembled him. They were both only eternal emperors, which should not have garnered his attention. However, the one on the left was odd. Firstly, Wang Wei could not tell this young man's exact cultivation realm. At first, he appeared to be only 54% Grand Dao source, while his brother was 67%, but Wang Wei knew he was hiding his real level, and whatever means he used, it was something even he could not see through. The second thing that drew his attention was this young man's eyes. He was born with the 17th heavenly physique, the double pupil. Lastly, the young man's reaction to their presence was strange. He first glanced at MÖngke with great worry before looking at Wang Wei with horror. All these emotions were very fast, almost unnoticeable before he controlled himself to look calm. Another interesting character, Wang Wei thought before focusing on the Ruthless King. The name is Empyrean Wang. It's a pleasure to meet you, but what should I address you as? The Ruthless King, or, would you prefer a more familiar term, like His Majesty? The Ruthless King squinted. Ruthless is fine. After all, I'm just a nationless ruler. I know it must have been hard, but could you quench my curiosity? Wang Wei asked. How was your dynasty destroyed? I'm assuming the parasites did it, forcing you into exile in this place. But why did they destroy it in the first place? Was there a particular reason, or were you guys just part of a long list of places to clean up? I don't believe this is the kind of conversation strangers should be having, the Ruthless King responded with clenching hands, trying to control his anger. Fair, Wang Wei nodded. So, let's get back on track. I believe we reached the part in our conversation where you asked me why I'm doing this. What animosity do I have with you or your gang? The Ruthless King stared at Wang Wei. He could not remember the last time he had a conversation where the opponent completely dominated the rhythm. He used extreme means to calm himself down. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1240 The Second Prince, There are no grudges or any relationships between us, Wang Wei said, not giving the Ruthless King time to respond and gain control of the conversation. I need a new force to end the situation outside, and the Lawless zone was the best place to amass power. The Ruthless King squinted. So, you're... That's right, Wang Wei nodded. How about this? If you join me peacefully, I promise to ally with you, and once we achieve our goals, we can go our separate ways. That is not happening, the Ruthless King replied decisively. I figured as much, Wang Wei sighed. I guess I now understand why you're in this situation. You don't know anything about me, so don't pretend like you do. I don't, but it's not hard to deduce, Wang Wei continued casually. You're probably from a top dynasty with paragons. However, they died during the ultimate taboo or the cleanup afterward. Despite these circumstances, your dynasty should still have existed, even if they had to live in embarrassment. Unfortunately, your ego and pride hurt the entire nation. You probably did something that provoked these parasites, or they tried to use you in one of their ploys, and your pride made you bluntly refuse them, causing one of them to annihilate your dynasty. In the end, you had to run with your tail between your legs, living in this place in exile as a shadow of your former glory. That should be the gist of it. Did I miss anything? I should be off in some of the small details. The Ruthless King looked at him, his killing intent almost palpable. The odd thing is it seems you haven't learned anything from that experience, Wang Wei continued. Your ancestors must be rolling in their graves in limbo. I assume you did not come to this place simply to hide from the parasites but also to hide from the consequences of your actions. After all, once your ancestors are revived, they will definitely dethrone you and may even directly execute you. This restricted place is your best chance at surviving their wrath. You have a sharp tongue, the Ruthless king commented, secretly clenching his fist. It's a shame you used to spew nonsense. Wang Wei ignored his feeble comeback, his gaze focusing on the legion behind him. It seems you're not completely useless. Your men's spirit and morals have not wavered the slightest with my words. So, your forte is military training? It's probably how you became the successor in your generation despite your terrible personality and unsuitable mindset for a ruler. Wang Wei then turned to the princes behind the Ruthless king. Your father's fate is sealed. If any of you can control his legion, I will be more than happy to work with you instead of him. If you wish to exercise filial piety, I can even spare his life as long as you promise to control him properly. Stop talking nonsense, yelled the first prince. You're stupid if you think we will betray our own father. I see, Wang Wei replied with a hidden smirk. His focus was on the second prince, the eye with the double pupil. Although the latter nodded in agreement, Wang Wei detected his hesitation. What a shame, Wang Wei sighed. Anyway, where are my people? The flesh and poison demons were captured, and he wanted to know their whereabouts. They are safely kept by me, the Ruthless king quickly replied, feeling he finally had some sense of control over the situation. However, I don't know how. I won't negotiate anything with you regarding their safety, Wang Wei cut him off. If you keep them alive, I promise not to touch your family lineage. Although you'll be gone, you can take comfort in the fact your lineage remains and might one day keep their status as emperors. By this point, veins were popping on the Ruthless king's neck. This is not how things are going to proceed. Do you understand me? Do you not understand your situation? Wang Wei rebutted. Do you think you can win in this situation? I have experienced millions of battles, and one thing I've learned is that there is always a way, no matter how dire the situation, the Ruthless king sneered. Wang Wei sighed, slightly exasperated. Do you think you're the only one accomplished in military tactics? Wang Wei asked. In your current situation, the only way out is to draw long enough against us until the hidden master hears of this disturbance and comes to put an end. Sadly for you, his presence will not change the situation. The Ruthless king's heart skipped a beat, the enemy was correct. As soon as he saw all these leaders show up, he knew this method was the only way for him and his people to survive. Now that we have everything laid up, I'm giving you one last chance. Surrender peacefully and spare your people this bloodshed. Father, please accept his offer, the second prince thought to himself, despite knowing it would be pointless, giving his father's pride and stubbornness. He knew how terrifying this group was, especially the Barbarian king and this Empyrean Wang. One of his double eye abilities is to determine people's talent. Over the years, he developed his own system to classify an individual's talent, worthless, genius, heaven chosen, which is further divided into low, middle, and top, and monstrous. Monster-level talent is the highest tier that someone can be born with, but not the highest level he's created. Above that are, once-in-a-generation talent, once-in-an-era talent, and anomalies. However, to achieve these levels, innate talent is no longer applicable. Cultivators must achieve certain tasks or goals, like breaking the barrier between mortals and immortals or achieving 9 supremacy, to go beyond the monstrous tier. Then, there is the level at the top of this list, the anomalies. The second prince did not even know such a level existed until he one day accidentally saw Empress Wu from afar, and his eyes detected a level of talent that had never seen in someone else. The prince thought his eyes may have made a mistake for many years until he met the Barbarian king. The latter was the only person close to the anomalous level, seemingly very closed but missing some other factor. So, he classified the Barbarian king as pseudo-anomaly. Today, the second prince met the second true anomalous talent in his life, Empyrean Wang. The second prince did not know why these anomalies were so scary, but they have displayed extraordinary powers and accomplishments so far. He knew his father did not stand a chance, even if he convinced himself that talent was not always equal to strength. The answer is still the same, the Ruthless King said calmly, already regaining his composure. A man should die standing up, never on his knees. Father, your stubbornness has doomed us again, the second prince sighed. I must do something. I can respect your choice and mindset as a cultivator. Of course, you're very unfit as a ruler and leader, Wang Wei said. However, ultimately, my view of you does not matter. Since you've chosen, let's get this over with. Under Wang Wei's order, the puppet and ghost demons summoned their armies. He used his yin-yang Dao to summon a symbol underneath these legions floating in the void. Then, the ghosts started to fuse with the puppets, turning their eye sockets into soul flames. Wang Wei nodded in satisfaction. With his actions, these powerful puppets now had more soul/spiritual attacks. Additionally, they can transform into a ghost state, providing them some intangibility. Such a state is also an excellent way to protect their puppet cores. Then, Wang Wei proceeded to activate his awakening and summon his 11 fate palaces. He arranged them in a weird shape before they suddenly linked into a magic circle with intricate designs. The palaces released a unique fluctuation that affected the area. The Empyreans were the first to notice what had happened. They could not summon their creations from their grand mist world. Wang Wei knew one of his weaknesses was his young age, which prevented him from even cultivating enough creation lives. As such, he immediately banned them in this battle. Be ready, the Ruthless King ordered with an ugly expression, and his legion responded in unison to his command. The two princes suddenly swallowed a pill, and their strength instantly reached the Empyrean realm. Then, a Chi-Luck dragon from their dynasty manifested in the void before fusing with the three and blessing them. Be careful, Wang Wei strangely warned the group. Did you also notice that fleeting gaze? MÖngke asked. I thought I was overthinking. No, it was there, Wang Wei stated. You're familiar with the hidden master. Do you think it's him? It was so fast that I couldn't tell, MÖngke replied. However, if someone can spy on us without being detected, it would be him. Wang Wei groaned softly. Anyway, prepare for possible interference and maybe even a sneak attack. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1241 Settle. Wang Wei did not want to spend much time in this battle, so he went all out from the very beginning. His body released a dark and eerie aura that enveloped the surroundings. The Ruthless King was immediately on guard, which was a wise move. A ghost-like figure dressed in all black, with a bony face and a scythe, suddenly manifested behind him and swung its weapon. The Ruthless King felt that death itself had come knocking on his door, so his intuition warned him to get as far away as possible from this embodiment of death. His feet turned golden, with small dragons rotating around his ankle. With one step, the Ruthless King was a few hundred light years away from the creature. However, Wang Wei had predicted his movement as he moved exactly next to a colossal black door that became visible due to his presence. The door opened, releasing a suction force, trying to capture him. The Ruthless King heard the cries of millions of souls, many of which he felt were people he had once killed. He resisted the suction, trying to move away from this terrifying thing. However, Wang Wei suddenly appeared before him and punched him into the door. The Ruthless King's dragon protection technique manifested the head of a dragon in the exact spot where Wang Wei's fist landed, protecting him from a direct attack from the fist. However, the force behind the punch still sent him flying into that terrifying door that resembled a ferocious beast's maw. As the Ruthless King approached the death door, he finally used his Dao. I reject death, he screamed in his mind, and that's exactly what happened. His rejection Dao allowed him to reject the very concept of death itself. The door dissipated, but the Ruthless King's suffering had only begun. What about the death of the mind? Wang Wei's voice echoed. The Ruthless King found himself in his sea of consciousness, but with each passing moment, everything around him turned slightly darker. He knew once everything turned black, this would mean the death of his mind, his memories, the death of his soul. He tried to reject death a second time, but this attempt was futile. The Ruthless King reacted swiftly and changed tactics. He rejected all negative status affecting his mind, soul, and spirit. His swift reaction allowed him to block the enemy's technique, but his soul was slightly injured in the process. Boom! A powerful force hit the Ruthless King on his chest, sending him flying away. His dragon protection cracked under the sheer power of that fist and the additional boost from the enemy's true will. Luckily for him, his Dao will was decent, and he protected himself. The Ruthless King rejected all force and momentum around him, allowing him to regain control of his body. However, he saw a pair of terrifying eyes coldly glancing at him. A terrifying pain rushed to his body. The pain was so intense that his soul, no, his very existence, could feel it. As he was about to reject pain from his body, Wang Wei's fist exploded his head and annihilated his soul with one punch. Such a swift and decisive move should have ended this battle. However, this was far from the truth. The Ruthless King's headless body suddenly exploded, forcing Wang Wei to take 5 steps back into the void. A longevity resource, he muttered. Wang Wei could tell his opponent was not dead, however, with his background, it makes sense. He looked in the distance, and as expected, the Ruthless King revived with a grim expression. The situation was less than ideal, and when it came to someone of this caliber, he could not even use his longevity technique to fake his death. What is taking him so long? The Ruthless King was still hoping for the hidden master to come to rescue him. Father, please surrender, the second prince suddenly transmitted through divine sense. Shut up, you unfilial son, the Ruthless King rebutted. Look around. We have no chance. The Ruthless King saw the situation. His legions first had the advantage, but with time, these mindless puppets that have no fear and are boosted by countless ghosts started to wear them out and slowly regain the lead. The Barbarian King instantly captured his first son, while the second barely held on with the help of the martial gang lord, who was once his greatest general. You should have noticed the difference between our power, Wang Wei said. Now, why don't you do the smart thing and surrender? It's fine if you don't want to serve under anyone else. You can retire and choose one of your sons to become my subordinate. Save your breath, the Ruthless King replied without hesitation, making Wang Wei exhale deeply. I truly hate people like you, Wang Wei stated. His offers have been more than generous, considering he was trying to conquer this place and not play around. However, this man refused any and all concessions. His stubbornness reminded him of that guy from the martial hegemony world. Fine. Have it your way, Wang Wei sneered. I'll ensure you stay dead this time. As Wang Wei went on the offensive, the Ruthless King responded in kind. His body released a strange yellow mist-like energy, which was, in fact, final grand mist. The Ruthless King used one of Empyrean's desperate measures. He sacrificed his grand mist world, destroying it and killing all the lives inside to revert them into Cosmos Grand Mist Chi. He then sacrificed his Grand Mist will to reverse Yang into Yin, turning the Cosmos Grand Mist into Final Grand Mist. The Ruthless King transformed the intense yellow energy in his palms into dragons to magnify their effects as he rushed toward Wang Wei with a brutal attack. No matter how good his defense or his control of true will, the potent effect of the Final Grand Mist should be enough to severely injure him. Once that happens, it will be easier for me to prolong this battle, the Ruthless King thought, his actions decisive and ruthless. Sadly, the Ruthless King made 2 mistakes. Firstly, he severely underestimated the effect of limit indestructibility, especially in the Empyrean realm. As such, even if he were facing MÖngke, this attack would only lightly injure him. The second mistake was he did not know his opponent well enough. Grand Mist is considered the first chi/force/power of the Chaos Universe, but that's not entirely true. Nothingness was the first. Although it only existed briefly before becoming Grand Mist, it is still the predecessor. As such, Wang Wei, whose body was nourished by nothingness, had an extremely high immunity to Final Grand Mist. However, he did not use this immunity for this clash. Instead, he used an absorbing spell to swallow all of the Ruthless King's grand mist chi and convert it into the power of nothingness. As such, the final result of this clash was Wang Wei holding a shocked Ruthless King by his neck as he looked at him calmly. "You're lucky. You did not annoy me enough or be such a threat that I need to go the extra length to grant you true death," Wang Wei calmly stated. "And by the time you revive yourself, it should be time for your dynasty to judge your incompetence." The Ruthless King's body dissipated. His eyes showed calmness, even a sense of relief. "The battle over there is finished?" MÖngke thought. "I guess I should put an end to this." Giant pressure. He summoned the weight of all the giants fused in his body and converted them into a gravitational pressure that he released on this entire battlefield. Everyone who was not his ally was forced to kneel, unable to move a muscle. Wang Wei returned to the group, secretly nodding in satisfaction. He glanced at the second prince. "I will not provide true death to your father. So, you should understand what I want." "Don't worry, sir, we will surrender and serve you loyally," the second prince immediately replied. "Bastard, who gave you the right to speak for me?" "For us," yelled the first prince. "This idiot," the second prince thought. He did not hesitate to use a soul attack to instantly annihilate his brother's soul. "I apologize about my brother. He won't be an eyesore anymore." "Decisive, I like that," Wang Wei praised. "But can you control your people?" "Half of the legion are my people," the second prince calmly announced this shocking truth. "As long as I convince General Long, the other half will follow me." "Good. I'll give you half an hour." The prince immediately started to converse with the martial gang lord, or as most people knew him, General Long. A little over 10 minutes later, the general boldly declared, "We will serve the second prince." "Excellent," Wang Wei smiled. "Let's return to the Azure Sky Pavilion. I'm interested in your story." Dulgun waved her staff to open a large portal for large-scale use. One by one, everyone left the battlefield until only Wang Wei remained. He looked in the distance, lost in thought. Was it someone else's sight I detected? Or was it the hidden master, but he's planning something else? Wang Wei grunted softly. He did not like the uncertainty of it all. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1242 The Double Pupils. After settling the martial outlaw gang, Wang Wei summoned all his new subordinates. He sat on a throne in the middle of a room, with MÖngke and his wife on his right and the flame blacksmith on his left. He looked at everyone else, but his gaze did not immediately focus on the second prince but on the poison and flesh demon, who were fine after being rescued. "You should understand that it's not a good look for you two to be captured on the first task I assigned you, right?" "We understand," the flesh demon bowed, accepting this reprimand. Meanwhile, the poison demoness felt this was unfair given the situation. However, she also apologized. "This is your first failure, and there were extenuating circumstances, so I'll let you off with a verbal warning," Wang Wei continued. "However, all of you must understand what is at stake. We are about to fight a war to end an era, so I don't need to remind you what failures will mean for us or anyone we care about." Wang Wei let his words simmer for a few seconds before addressing the second prince. "What's your name?" "I am Jia Ping, the second prince of the Great Tan Divine Court." "Great Tan? I remember you guys were top members of the Dynasty Assembly," Wang Wei stated. This assembly was not among the 13 overlords since Great Qin was the only dynasty-form faction in the 13. However, the Great Qin Saint Court was too ambitious, forcing countless dynasties to fuse or bow to them. So, the other 13 supported the establishment of the Dynasty Assemble to quell their ambitions and balance them out. "That was in the past," Jia Ping replied. "Our dynasty was destroyed and looted by these parasites. Now, we are a shell of our former past." "What exactly happened?" "The Five-Feather Phoenix wished to use us as pawns against the Earth Emperor, who started acting like the human emperor and the Great Qin Saint Court. The official warned my father to use diplomatic means to remain neutral and isolated, but he wouldn't listen, Jia Ping explained, sighing deeply. He was first rude to the envoy, and afterward, he tried to contact the undead phoenix to join him in eliminating Five Feather. He probably thought he could take her out and replace her amongst the seven. As you can guess, his actions backfired, and the others used this opportunity to eliminate us and plunder our territory and resources. It appeared as if your father was not the best ruler, so how did he get the throne? Dulgun asked. He was indeed subpar regarding governance compared to his siblings, Jia Ping admitted. However, he was the best military commander. From what I pieced together, the elders and ancestors chose him as the successor because they believed they could make up for his lack of governing ability with their presence. Unfortunately, they died, and without their presence to restrain my father, he did whatever he pleased. A terrible twist of fate, Wang Wei commented. What about your situation? It's now apparent that you were already in the Empyrean realm, but you hid your cultivation. Then, there is the fact you've secretly controlled your father's army. I had no choice, Jia Ping said, smiling wryly. Since I was young, it was apparent I was more competent than my elder brother, meaning the throne should have been mine. However, my father secretly despised me for some reason and treated my brother better even though we had the same mother. He probably saw his past situation with his siblings in our competition and projected his insecurities on me. When my mother was still alive, he at least pretended to treat us equally. But after she reincarnated after failing her Paragon tribulation, he no longer had to pretend. I suspect that's why he also never searched for her reincarnation. Jia Ping had a sneer on his face. Mother suspected this may be the case, so she warned me to look out for myself. Your mother tried to become a paragon in this political climate? She's a bold woman, Wang Wei praised. That she was. One of the main reasons the elders allowed my father to ascend to the throne was his marriage to Jia Ping's mother. She was to be his anchor, reigning in his arrogance and pride. So, what method do you use to hide your cultivation? Wang Wei wanted to know what method could hide from him. It's nothing impressive, a tier 12 talisman, Jia Ping replied, showing the jade talisman to everyone. My mother gave it to me before entering the source chi space for her tribulation. It's one of the few things I have left of her. Jia Ping looked at the talisman with love and care. However, you can have it if the Lord wishes. Although it can only be used to hide cultivation, it's an excellent resource for the correct opportunity. I won't take such a precious thing from you for no reason, Wang Wei declined. However, if the situation arises, I may need to borrow it. He knew he needed all the resources for this upcoming fight, but he did not need to take it from his subordinate. Such an act is detrimental to the team's cohesion. No problem, Jia Ping nodded. I have 2 more questions, Wang Wei stated. Firstly, it's about your reaction when we first appeared on the battlefield. Your eyes saw something, what was it? Jia Ping hesitated briefly after hearing this question before explaining his talent classification to the room. Anomaly, huh? Wang Wei muttered. He was surprised that the second prince had some kind of connection with his future wife. However, as for this talent classification, Wang Wei was only mildly intrigued, and that's because there was too little information to determine what made him and Wu Hong an anomaly. For example, would his ancestor, the Sword Empress, known for her unparalleled talent, be an anomaly or someone close to it like MÖngke? Does it have to do with achieving a perfect 9 supremacy, or do other factions come into play? There were too many questions and no answers. Lord, what do you think I'm missing? MÖngke asked. He suddenly felt this question was crucial to his future. I can't say for sure since there is too little information, Wang Wei replied. It could be that you need to double cultivate the Tao. But, I'm a body refiner. Could it be that a single focus path cannot become an anomaly? Like I said, there is too little information to tell, Wang Wei reinstated. Another possibility might be you must achieve Taboo Realm. I did it in the Emperor Realm, so maybe that's what you're missing. Wang Wei theorized his future wife might have achieved Battle Realm Taboo Realm in the Empyrean or Paragon Realm. However, these were all speculations. Taboo realm, MÖngke muttered. You should not focus too much on this now, Dulgun reminded him. This classification is based on the lad's visual prowess and personal interpretation, and as the Lord said, there is too little information to go on. So, don't lose your focus. Dulgun knew how her husband could easily become obsessed with strength or achievements. As such, she warned him not to put all his focus on this classification and lose sight of their current situation. On to my second question, Wang Wei continued, secretly nodding that Dulgun reminded MÖngke of his current priority. Did your eyes awaken? They did, Jia Ping responded proudly. The double pupil was a top physique in itself, but if its own could awaken it, its value would be comparable to the top 5 heavenly physiques due to the ability it will acquire, copy Dao. As the name implied, this ability allowed the owner of the double pupil to copy someone else's cultivation level and acquire their Dao. In other words, Jia Ping could copy Wang Wei's Fate Dao and instantly achieve the same level of cultivation as Wang Wei now, 77%. Jia Ping could then choose whether this Ly acquired Fate Dao is his primary or a sub-Dao. Which level? Wang Wei asked with a smile. The highest. Wang Wei's eyes lit up. Meaning you can copy a Paragon's Dao. Although the limit of the double pupil was 90%, and Jia Ping could only use it after becoming a Paragon himself, it was still a terrifying ability. After all, who wouldn't want a free Dao that reaches the Paragon tier? If Wang Wei had those eyes, he would definitely use them to raise one of his professional Dao to the Paragon realm. You're more talented than I thought, Wang Wei praised. Awaking the double pupil was slow, tedious, and challenging. On top of that, it can only be accomplished before proving the Dao. Wang Wei suddenly sighed. Your father was truly a moron. Jia Ping was a prince, meaning his awakening task would use this identity as the basis. Heaven and earth would slowly cultivate Jia Ping into the perfect emperor/ruler, and his double pupil would evolve accordingly. The fact his eyes developed the ability to detect talent was proof of this. Yet, despite knowing all of this, the Ruthless king still isolated such a talented heir. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1243 Chat on a floating rock. MÖngke walked out of the planning meeting, his mind already wandering somewhere. When he returned to his quarters, MÖngke summoned a pen and parchment and started writing. Despite how small the brush was, MÖngke's writing was impeccable due to his ungodly control over his body. He wrote notes or observations about Wang Wei, from the latter's behavior, mindset, tactical abilities, and even subtle micro-expressions. MÖngke even wrote about Wang Wei's flaws, like his often casual demeanor, which MÖngke viewed as not appropriate for a leader. If your subordinates are too comfortable for you, it becomes easier for them to walk out of line. Of course, MÖngke also recognized that Wang Wei can instantly switch from joyous and casual to noble and intimidating. His personality could not walk this fine line, so MÖngke decided not to learn from this aspect. Another critique he had was that Wang Wei was not ruthless enough. He believed Wang Wei should have been more harsh on the demoness, especially the poison demoness. Her resentment at being reproached was visible, and if he were him, he would have punished her harsher. Maybe this was a wise choice since the group has just been established, MÖngke pondered on the last criticism. Kindness is also a weapon that can be used as a means of control. I can learn from this mindset. MÖngke continued writing his observations and analysis, all with the desire to improve himself as a cultivator and a leader. His first instinct seems to resolve any situation using the less violent approach. I learned this lesson before, but he's more extreme. Negotiation seems to be the first solution, and he also ensures that everybody benefits while he benefits the most, even if that is usually secretly. That is a good approach to things. MÖngke wrote down his last thought. I have much to improve, and it seems it won't be easy to reach his level, he uttered. We have plenty of time, Dulgun, who sat next to him, reassured. Wisdom cannot be acquired or achieved in one day. That's true, MÖngke nodded. Tell me what you... He suddenly stopped mid-sentence, frowning intensely. Dulgun waited for 10 minutes before asking. Is something alright? I feel a brilliant idea coming my way, but it keeps eluding me. Oh. What kind of idea? One that could help my situation and even break all the shackles I'm facing. That's quite the idea. Did you catch it yet? No, MÖngke replied, not hiding his frustration. He tried countless memories, mind, and spiritual techniques and skills but still could not catch the idea. Maybe this is not the right time for this idea, Dulgun reassured. Maybe you're right, MÖngke sighed. Huh. He looked in the distance and suddenly stood up as he had detected something. Should I provide assistance? No, he would ask if he needed it, so let's just wait. Wang Wei was left alone after the meeting. He discussed the group's next course of action in detail, including moving out of the Lawless zone. Now, he only had two things to finish: Gu Xian's secret resources and payback to Empyrean Blackheart. As for the group, they had their own task since the conquest was not completed. There were a few scattered Empyreans or Tier 11 insurgents in this place. Those people did not join or build any large factions, but they were powerful enough to remain relatively independent. The group's next task was to bring these people under his command. What should I do first? Wang Wei contemplated. Gu Xian's treasure is not going away anytime soon, but he is also not in a hurry to beat up Empyrean Blackheart since he tasked people to look out for that bastard. These tasks bring him immense pleasure, so it is a decision of which pleasure to experience first, acquiring great wealth or finally getting revenge, petty revenge. It's probably best Wang Wei suddenly stood up from his cushion as he sensed something. So? Finally showed up. He teleported to an isolated location of the Lawless zone full of debris of destroyed planets, dimensions, and vast continents. An elderly man dressed in black and gold sat on a floating rock with a pot of tea and 2 cups before him. Come. Seat. Let's chat, said the old man with a smile, his brown eyes calm but reassuring. Wang Wei looked at this person. He could not detect anything, no matter the mean. It was as if a normal mortal was in front of him, but that analogy made no sense since he could see everything from a mortal. He checked the surroundings before accepting the offer. You can call me Old Man Dai, or, if you want to be more formal, just call me the Hidden Master like the people here do. Wang Wei. I know. I know more than you think, Old Man Dai said, pouring tea for both of them. Wang Wei carefully sipped. The tea was subpar for something served by a Paragon, but it was understandable, given the latter was stuck in this hell hole. I know it's lackluster, but it's the best I can offer. What is this meeting for? Wang Wei asked directly. Are you here to show off and put me in place or something? No. I'm here to talk and clarify things, Old Man Dai reassured. Firstly, we are not enemies. Oh. How so? As soon as I recognized you and your destiny, I decided not to interfere in your affairs. In fact, I wished I could help. Wang Wei finally understood the Hidden Master's mindset and why he let him conquer this place. Of course, that's assuming he's telling the truth and not scheming something. Why can't you help me? I love my life too much, Old Man Dai replied. Leaving this place is guaranteed death. Plus, I'm not young enough, so it's best to leave the fighting to the youngsters. Youthfulness was more of a mindset for cultivators, so Wang Wei would not comment on Old Man Dai's last statement. You do know if the 2 sons came here to kill you, you have no chance of surviving, right? They are too busy balancing each other to care about little old me, Old Man Dai chuckled. Plus, it's not like I don't have a chance. Those are bold words, Wang Wei said, suddenly intrigued. Have you heard about the 2 most popular theories on how this place came to be? I have. Well, they are both true, Old Man Dai said. Long time ago, this place was created by a man with an outrageous amount of hatred and obsession. He even sacrificed his life to make this place. However, he did not stop at that. He somehow convinced true heavenly Tao, probably through merit or something else, to help him make a safe zone in the eternal ascension world before sacrificing himself to imbue this place with his will and obsession. So, even if Supreme Unity took complete control of true heavenly Tao to lift the power it kept in this place, or Maitreya went the extreme route and eradicated true heavenly Tao's power, the obsession should buy me enough time to run and escape through the source chi space. You thought a lot about this, haven't you? It's one of the main thoughts that keep this old man the most at night, Old Man Dai chuckled. Yes, Wang Wei muttered before squinting. You seem to know a lot of secrets or hidden truths. Didn't I tell you? I know more than you think. My question is how? Wang Wei followed up. That is my secret to keep, Old Man Dai smiled. My thought is 4 ways to explain it, Wang Wei continued before counting with his finger. 1. You're an unparalleled genius like me who can deduce these truths from a data pool. 2. You're a diviner, unlike anything the world has seen. 3. You have one of the best information agencies in the world. 4. You have direct information from the inside. Which one is the correct one? Can you tell me, or do you want me to deduce it? Old Man Dai secretly cursed himself. Why did he have to show up by appearing more mysterious and revealing so much information? I think you're overthinking, he responded, his expression unchanged. Let's see, Wang Wei continued, looking him in the eye. You talk like you know a lot about me, but this is the first time we've met, so where did your information come from? We can start by eliminating the fact that you're an unparalleled diviner. Wang Wei was a master of fate and a fateless, so he doubted Old Man Dai could divine his information without him even detecting a hint of it. This might be possible if the old man was a top paragon. But if that were the case, the 2 sons would have eliminated him no matter the price needed to pay. The subsequent elimination is the best information agency in the world. You would need a lot of money and resources to build something like that. And if you had succeeded, your way of life in the lawless zone would not be much different on the outside. Additionally, the parasites would put more effort into eliminating if you had access to such resources. The third to eliminate is intelligence. You don't conduct yourself in such a manner. However, that's not a completely valid reason to discard your intelligence. After all, you may be putting on an act capable of even fooling me. No, I eliminated intelligence because that also requires data. You can't deduce such knowledge and secrets without some basic information. You don't know me, and we have never met, so how would you know much about me? How did you know enough about Maitreya and Supreme Unity to deduce their strength and capabilities? We've already determined you don't have one of the best spy agencies in the world, so where did your information originate from? Wang Wei asked, looking him directly in the eyes. He was already on guard, preparing for things to get sour. Old Man Dai sighed deeply. He told me to be careful when dealing with you. I should have listened. Who? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1244. Oh. Fate. Oh. Fate. Old Man Dai pondered briefly. It was no use hiding at this point since he may figure it out given enough time. Plus, revealing the news has no downside, and it might allow them to establish some level of trust. It was Disaster who told me. The hidden 8th moon? Yes. I see, Wang Wei nodded. You don't seem surprised, Old Man Dai asked. He was on my list of people, albeit not at the top, Wang Wei explained. Logically speaking, it explains some things. For example, I now knew why you could hide from the parasites when they came together to clean up this place. Thinking about it now, the fact you could hide at all means you have a decent technique. Did it come from Disaster? From what I deduce about him, he should be excellent at hiding, probably the best in the world currently. That's right. I did use his technique of avoiding disaster to hide myself, Old Man Dai acknowledged. That means you must be closed, Wang Wei added. But how? Brothers? Apprentice? Lovers? Which is it? Old man Day's lips twitched. It wasn't hard to guess since your personality is very similar, Wang Wei continued. You both value your life above everything else, and you have no shame in hiding and running when necessary. However, disaster seems more extreme since you're willing to fight the parasites under the right circumstances. Old man Dai sighed. This conversation has been nothing but frustrating. We are disciples under the same master, he replied. Our sect only had 3 of us, and the master's philosophy was extreme caution will lead to a longer life. He repeated those words to us every time he had a chance. I was right. The disaster Paragon does follow the Go Dao, Wang Wei thought. Your master must be very talented if he cultivated 2 paragons in his sect. I guess. Is he dead? No, he's very much alive, Old Man Dai replied with probably the most confidence since this conversation started. He didn't participate in the ultimate taboo? Hell no, Old Man Dao shook his head. He saw the trouble miles away. As soon as everything ended and he heard 99% of the participants died or were injured, he ran away from the Eternal Ascension world. I have no idea what corner he's hiding in. Wang Wei was momentarily silent. I don't know if I should praise this man's wisdom or, well, everyone has their way of living or cultivating. Maybe I should not judge. Regardless of his feelings about this school's philosophy, he could not deny that they've cultivated 3 paragons. This result is proof enough that they are a substantiated philosophy. Wise words, Old Man Dai said. Most people who learn of their philosophy call them cowards who don't deserve their power and achievements. It's rare for someone to be polite or even acknowledge the wisdom in their philosophy. There is something I've been trying to figure out. Maybe you can help me, Wang Wei continued. How did Disaster become one of these parasites? His personality indicates that he should have run away from this trouble. He didn't have much choice, Old Man Dai sighed. As you may have already deduced, the true leader of the Moon and Sun Council were the 2 sons, but that also meant the Moon Council was left with 5 individuals, meaning they were not balanced. Their plan from the beginning was to have 8 members. And when they chose the 8th, they selected Disaster because of his personality. He valued his life above everything, and such a person would only vote for the neutral decision that kept the balance since it would be chaos and strife otherwise. Old Man Dai sighed. When they appeared before him, he knew this was a disaster he could not escape. So, he accepted their offer with the condition his identity remained a secret. He was probably preparing his escape when things went awry, Wang Wei commented. I have to admit, he's a man of foresight. It was not a simple act for Disaster to predict the eventual end of the parasites' era the moment they recruited him. It was also impressive that he was not corrupted by the power he acquired by being one of the moons. Master used to praise him for this quality. Speaking of your master, why didn't he warn you 2 to be careful of the upcoming chaos? Wang Wei asked, and Old Man Dai's eyes twitched after hearing this. He did, but only after he had found the perfect hiding spot. Sadly, it was too late for Disaster by the time the warning arrived. Luckily, Disaster did not forget our brotherly bond. He hid our connection and warned me of the many dangers coming my way. Wang Wei nodded. I have only one thing left to ask. Is it possible for you to help me contact Disaster? You want him to join your cause? If possible. I advise you to give up this idea, Old Man Dai said. I know my junior brother, and he won't show up ever now that he has found a good reason to run away and hide. Could he at least provide me with information? He must know much about the others, which will be good enough for me. What's in it for him? Old Man Dai stated. Whether you're victorious and end this era, or they are victorious and prolong it, or you end this era and some of the parasites successfully survive, it will only bring him trouble if he associates with you. Riches mean nothing to him, Old Man Dai continued. Our sect doesn't rely too much on resources, and he has already amassed more than he could imagine during his time as a moon. So, choosing your side will only increase the chances of someone retaliating against him. Dealing with Go Dao people is genuinely frustrating, Wang Wei sighed. He's used to using people's desire to get them to do as he pleases. Sadly, this tactic is useless to these paranoid people. Go Dao. This word perfectly encapsulates our ideology, Old Man Dai uttered, his eyes shining brightly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1245 Paragon will, Rain Domain. Old Man Dai's reaction was slightly faster than Wang Wei and took the initiative. The void was suddenly filled with raindrops that Old Man Dai controlled, and he unleashed them on his opponent. Wang Wei squinted his eyes as he realized each of those drops contained enough force/power to do severe damage to any peak indestructible paragon with any immunity to power Dao. However, Wang Wei himself was not safe because he detected a very subtle infusion of Dao will in each of the drops. Wang Wei waved his hand to create a universe that swallowed these raindrops. However, they were so powerful that his universe did not last a second, and that's despite the fact he boosted their defense with his true will. Wang Wei reacted by replicating his opponent's technique. However, the rain he condensed was from his death Dao, meaning they were death drops. His plan was simple: use numbers to combat numbers. Unfortunately, although he had the right mindset, he underestimated his opponent's ability. His Dao will application might be even better than mine, Wang Wei theorized. It made sense, given how long Old Man Dai has been living and that he might have received formal training from a master. Wang Wei teleported to avoid the rain, but even that was pointless. The rain contained the ubiquitous characteristic, in other words, this technique functioned under the same principle, just like people could not avoid it unless they built shelter. A few drops of rain touched Wang Wei's body, leaving minor shallow cuts that healed instantly. Wang Wei summoned a time shield around his body, and it could speed up time, forcing the raindrops to age billions of years before reaching him. This move took him some time to breathe, so he went on the offensive. He condensed a thunder spear that he threw with ungodly strength. Old Man Dai was wise, knowing that using water to block this attack was unwise. So, he gathered his rain to make water, which he then changed into ice. With an ice spear in his hand, he casually pushed the thunder spear to the side. Their speed was great, but he also reacted in time, blocking 90% of them. His time shield should have dealt with the remaining 10%, but these raindrops contained the power of time and bypassed his defense. He suddenly remembered that paragons had a much easier time traveling through the river of time, thus, it was common for their techniques or skills to touch on time Dao. Wang Wei suddenly exchanged position with the spear, placing himself directly next to Old Man Dai. He did not hesitate and went for a punch full of the power of death. The old man exploded, but not into a pool of blood, but into countless raindrops, which rushed toward Wang Wei. Their speed was great, but he also reacted in time, blocking 90% of them. Wang Wei's body instantly regenerated to its normal state. He condensed a brand new white and purple robe, thus returning to his peak handsome state. "I must thank you," Wang Wei said. Although he lost, the battle paved the way for his future while saving him a lot of time. "That's no problem," Old Man Dai said proudly. "Well, I'm leaving," Wang Wei continued. "Even though your junior brother will reject me, I wish you would still tell him of my offer." "No problem. But as I said, don't hold your breath." Wang Wei nodded before teleporting away. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Han Fa knew this path would increase his survivability and strength, but it would not help him reach the next realm. Do I have to take the risk and participate in the upcoming tribulation to have a chance at enlightenment? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible.